Hey everyone, welcome back to Driple Studios. Today I'll show you how to create your own pet system in Roblox. This pet system will include eggs that can be hatched by the player, a pet inventory, an extra Slots Gamepass, more inventory space Game Pass, buy one egg, buy 3 eggs Game Pass, auto buy eggs Game Pass, pet boosts such as 2 times cash, and saving and loading. I should note that this video will be very long and very complicated. I suggest you complete this video in stages, maybe doing one bit at a time. If at any point you can't figure something out, please leave a comment or join our Discord server where you can ask questions. More information, including a link to our Discord server, can be found in the description. I should also note that the code in this video can be optimised further, but to ensure friendliness for all levels of experience, I've kept the script as straightforward as I can while still optimising performance. Let's get into it. If you go into the description, near the top under resources, you'll find a link to this template egg model that I have created. This model is basically a template egg. It's just an egg inside of a container. There are no scripts in this model. We will write all of those for now. And keep in mind the name and description will probably have been changed when this video is released. And once you've actually installed it, go into your toolbox in Roblox Studio. Go to this little 4 squares one, the My Models tab, and find the model that you've just downloaded. Here we go. So if I bring this into the workspace here, I've now got a template egg. Let me review what's actually inside of this egg. So if we open it up, we've got the egg here, which is this part in the middle. This is just a mesh part that I found from the toolbox, which the mesh ID is basically an egg. We've got a base, which is just this bottom cylinder here. A glass, which is basically a cylinder with a bit of transparency, just so we can see the egg inside. That's all it is 0.6 transparency. A GUI trigger, which I'll get onto in a minute. A name tag, which is the name. A price tag, which is the price. And the top, which is just this top cylinder here. It's a very simple model. By all means, feel free to create your own. I just feel like it would save a lot of time if I provide this model. So let's make this a basic egg. I'm going to have 3 egg rarities: basic, rare, and legendary. So let's rename this to basic egg. And if I find the name tag, let me open up the name text and change this to say basic egg. Now it says basic egg. The price I will leave at 100 because I want to change this in script. But we'll change it in script a bit later on because we've got a few more things we need to do before we can do that. Again, I'll come back to this GUI trigger, but if you're making your own container, these are the very important things that you need. You need a glass object, which is just a part which is slightly see-through to see the egg inside, and you need a GUI trigger. The GUI trigger is basically a part. If I was to make the transparency 0, it's just a big square around this cylinder here. Mine's a size of 18 by 18 by 18. Make sure it covers a good chunk. All this will do is when the player touches this GUI trigger, so when it enters this box here, it will throw a GUI onto the screen for the player to buy the egg. But we will, as I say, we will get onto it more later on. But for now, make sure you've got that GUI trigger object. Now I'm going to duplicate the egg, just drag it across, and rename this to rare egg. I will change the name text to say rare egg. I'll probably change the color and the color of the egg as well. Here we go. I've now got 3 eggs, a basic, a rare, and a legendary egg. I've also changed the egg color and the color of the actual cylinders here. Now, something you should note is the GUI trigger should have can collide set to false, meaning the player can walk through the part. Everything else should be set to can collide is true. Just the GUI trigger should be set to can collide false, which means the player can just walk through the part without any worry. We also want to make sure everything's anchored, so click on the basic egg and make sure anchor is selected here, and do the same for the other eggs you've created. So again, these other eggs, I've just renamed it to rare egg, for example, and changed the name text. That's all I've done. And something else to keep in mind is we want to have these squares here somewhat far away from each other so that you can't have 2 showing at the same time. In other words, you don't want the player to be able to fit through these 2 boxes here. You want the player to only be able to have one collided with at a time. So you need them far enough apart that the player cannot touch both at the same time. If I drag one over here and one here, these 2 are never going to touch. What we could do is hit avatar, character, and just bring in my avatar here. And we can tell that the player is not wide enough to fill both of these boxes. Let's do the same for this one here. So it just needs to come over this way a little bit. There we go. And now, there we go. It's not wide enough. Perfect. Let's bring this one a little bit over. And that's just to stop when we add the Billboard GUIs from activating them all at the same time. Okay, now let's create a Leaderstats script inside of server script service. So add a script, I'll rename this and just call it Leaderstats. And what I'll do is just create a few Leaderstat variables, cash and gems, just so we've got some values to work with throughout the video. If you have your own Leaderstats system, you will probably not need to follow this part. If you want more information on Leaderstats, please check out my video about Leaderstats. I'll leave a link in the description. For now, let's just write a basic Leaderstats script. So players is game : get service players. Then we'll say players.playerAdded : connect function, passing in player as a parameter. So each time the player's joined, the player that joined is passed through and this function is called. So in here, we'll create a Leaderstats folder, local Leaderstats equals instance.new folder inside of the player. And the name, leaderstats.name, will just be Leaderstats, all lowercase. It must be all lowercase or it will not work. I'm going to create a cash variable and a gems variable inside of the Leaderstats. So local cash equals instance.new. So local cash equals instance.new. I'll make this a number value inside of the Leaderstats. It needs to be a number value, not an integer, because of the decimal multipliers that we're going to have with pets. I'm going to show you how to create multipliers, which when you equip a pet, it will give you, for example, 1.5 times coins or cash. And if you've got a whole number, 3, and multiply it by 1.5, you're going to get 4.5. You can't show that as an integer, it will just get rounded. So if you want actual decimal values, use number value. If you want it to be rounded, use integer. I'll use number value. Cash.name will be cash, and cash.value, I'm going to give a default of 10,000 because we're going to use cash to actually open the eggs. And when I test later on, I want to have cash to open the eggs with. The local gems equals instance.new. Make this a number value as well for the exact same reason. Inside the Leaderstats, I'll say gems.name equals gems. I won't give the gems a default value because by default it will be 0 and I don't want to start with any gems. Gems are just an extra currency to show that you can have multiple multipliers. Now we can close the Leaderstats script. And now inside of replicated storage we need to add a folder which I'll rename to configs. And in here we're going to add in a module script which I'll rename to pet module. This is where we're going to handle all of our pets, their cost, their rarity, their names, their currencies, all of that good stuff. So basically, it's a table of all the pets. So we'll say local pets is equal to an empty table, and we're going to return pets. If you don't understand module scripts, basically you can create tables and functions in here and have other scripts access them. This pets table is going to basically be a table of all the eggs. So we've got the basic egg, which will be equal to a table. We will have the rare egg, which will be equal to a table. And we'll also have the legendary egg, which will be equal to a table. Because in my workspace, we created a basic, a rare, and a legendary. Of course, you'll do this for all the rarities you have. But before I move on to the rare and legendary egg, let's just focus on the basic one. So let's open up this table. And first of all, let's get the number of digits in the percentage. I'll call this rarity max. Rarity max equals 100. And what I mean by the number of digits in the percentage, well, I'll try and put some visuals on the screen to help explain this, but there's no easy way of visualizing this. If you have, for example, 100%, you see here there's 3 numbers, 100. It's all down to the precision of your rarity system. Let's say I have a pet and the chance of getting that pet from the egg is 50%. But if we want to have a decimal, so if maybe we want something to be 39.4%, then we need to increase the rarity max to 1,000. So if you imagine a number being out of 100, so in terms of integers, so you've got 1 out of 100. I'll try and put it on the screen. 1 out of 100. You have 100 possibilities there. If you have 100 numbers, you have 100 possibilities, hence the rarity max being 100. If you're adding a 1 decimal place, you've suddenly multiplied the possibilities by 10, because you now have 0.123456789, 1%, 1.1234, and so on. You've added an extra multiplier of 10 to the number of possibilities. You suddenly have 1,000 possibilities. If you have 2 decimal places, 39.45%, for example, you've added another 10 times multiplier to the possibilities. You now have 10,000 possibilities of numbers, ranging from 0.01, 0.02, all the way up to 99.99. 10,000 possible numbers if you go inclusive and include 100%. So you'll change this based on how precise you want your percentages to be. For the basic egg, I'll just keep it at 100. So this is the precision, essentially. So, and we also want to create a cost, which will be equal to the cost of the egg. So in my case, 100 cash. I'm going to make all the costs cash just because it makes sense. Make sure at the end of each line you put a semicolon as well, or a comma. You don't need to do it on the last line, but I'm going to be adding more lines. If you don't, for example, if I don't put a semicolon here, this will get a red squiggly line under it, because we have to finish the preceding line with a semicolon. Next, let's actually create the pets. So we'll add a new key here named pets, and this will be a table of all the pets that will be found inside of the basic egg. Here we go. So I put some information on here as comments. So we're going to manually calculate the percentages. Now, I couldn't find an amazing way of doing RNG because randomness and computers don't really go together. There's nothing truly random. And even trying to do it a different way to what I've done it, I just couldn't figure anything out. But I've made something work, but there's a little bit of manual like mathematics behind it. Nothing too complicated though. So I'm going to have in my basic egg, I'm going to have a dog, a cat, a mouse, and a bunny. Don't worry, we'll go through the models of creating the models of the pets later on. But for now, let's just figure out what pets we're going to have. So in my basic egg, I'm going to have a dog, a cat, a mouse, and a bunny. I want the dog to have a 50% chance of being chosen, a cat 25%, mouse 15%, and bunny 10%. How can I turn these percentages into actual numbers that can be chosen? Basically, our random system, well, let me just show you, and then we can go from there. So I'll put 1, so the first pet equals a new table. The name will be dog. So this is the name. The currency will be cash. So this is just the currency that the pet boost affects. So if you have 2 times multiplier, it's going to multiply the cash by 2 times. If I made this gems, it would multiply the gems by 2 times. And then the multiplier will be, I'll put it as 1.2. So this is the multiplier the pet gives when equipped. And I'll also make the rarity now. Here we go, so rarity equals 50. Now, when you have a rarity max of 100, the rarity is easy to figure out. 50% is 50 out of 100. Now let me do the cat. And then when I've done the cat, you'll realise that actually this rarity is a bit strange. So number 2, so again I put a semicolon after this table here, because it's preceding line. Number 2 will be a new table. And I'll just copy all of this. Paste it in. The name will be cat. The currency I'll make also be cash. I'll make the multiplier 1.4, so a slightly stronger multiplier. And now you think the rarity of the cat is 25%. So rarity should be 25, right? Well, I'm going to put rarity at 75. And the reason for this is you're going to add the rarity percentage. If it's out of 100, you basically add the percentage to the previous one. Let me actually add some comments that I've written down beforehand. Okay, so this is how the rarity system works. For 2 digits of a percentage, you choose a number between 1 and 100. For wx.y%, you choose between 1 and 1,000. wx.yz, choose between 1 and 10,000. vw.xyz, choose a number between 1 and 100,000. That's sort of the system that that's what I discussed already. The larger the number, the more common the pet. So the most common needs to be at the top and the least common at the bottom. But what I mean by the larger number, I don't mean the larger number as in rarity. I mean the gap. So, for example, the gap between 0 and 900, so the preceding thing before 900 would be 0, is 900. That's a 90% chance. The gap between 950 and 900 is 50. So the cat is the second rarest. The gap between 980 and 950 is 30, so mouse is third rarest. And the gap between rat and mouse, 999 and 980, is 19. So that's the most rare. So the last animal must always have a rarity of whatever the rarity max is minus 1. So if your rarity max is 100, you'll never have an animal that's rarity is set to 100, because the way the system works is exclusive. The math.random is exclusive of the last item. So it never actually includes that. So now let me move on to the next one, and then I'll give you the formulae for calculating these. So my third pet, number 3, will be equal to a new table. I'll copy these, and the name is mouse. It's going to affect I'm going to make this one affect gems, so I'll change this to gems. The multiplier, 1.3, and I want the rarity to be 15%, so it'll be 90. Now, how am I getting these numbers? Well, it's quite clear that 50%, the first pet, is 50% rarity, so rarity is equal to 50. The second pet's 25%, so I'm just adding 25 to 50 to get the second pet. The next one's 15%, so I'm just adding 15 to 75 to get 90. It's pretty clear that that's how that works. And actually ignore what I was saying about this last rarity thing. The last rarity should always end in rarity max, because otherwise there's a slight, it won't exactly be the right chance. So ignore what I was saying about that. So now I'll do the final pet. So the final pet is equal to, copy and paste these in, name, the currency, the multiplier, and the rarity. The bunny, so the name is bunny, it'll be gems. I'll make the multiplier 1.5, and the rarity will be, the rarity of the last pet is always equal to the rarity max. Ignore what I said earlier, so this will be 100. Now let me show you the formulae and how these work. So to actually figure out the current pet rarity, write down all your percentages. So the percentages you want each pet to have. Make sure these percentages add up to 100. If they don't add up to 100, they're flawed. Every percentage in statistics must always add to 100%. So to get the current pet rarity, it's going to be the percentage divided by 100 multiplied by rarity max plus the previous pet rarity. For example, for me to get the rarity number of the mouse, it's going to be equal to the percentage, which is 15, so 15%, over 100, which is 0.15. Then we're going to multiply it by the rarity max, which is 100, so that cancels out. So it will go back to 15, but it will be different if it's 1,000 and 10,000. So we have to still include that divide by 100 times by rarity max. So we're at 15, and then we add the previous pet rarity, which is 75. And that's how we get it, basically. Now let me do the next egg, and then I'll show you sort of how this changes. So I'll add a semicolon at the end of our basic egg table. Copy the entire basic egg. Drop down twice and paste it in again, and this will be rare egg. For my rare egg, I'll make the rarity max 1000. So here I'm going to have 1 decimal point in my percentages. I'll make the cost 500 as well, just so it's a bit more expensive because it's rarer pets. And in here, I will have a hamster, which is going to be a 60% rarity. I will have a fish at 30% rarity. I will have a lizard at 7.4% rarity. And I'll have a fly at 2.6% rarity. I'm not sure why a fly is rarer than a lizard, fish, or a hamster, but I was running low on ideas, so I went with a fly. We can ignore, I'll keep the formula here. We don't need that formula. And I'll remove these comments just so it's a bit less crowded now. So, the name of the first pet is hamster. The currency it's going to affect, I'll make cash. I'll make the multiplier much stronger at 2.4. So it's going to multiply our cash gain by 2.4. And you'll see what I mean by cash gain shortly. Shortly, what I'll do is create a system to automatically give us cash and gems every second, and then the multiplier will increase that amount. Now for 600, let's run this through the formula. So we want 60%. So to get our rarity number, 60%, so 60 over 100 is 0.6, times by the rarity max is 600, plus the previous pet rarity, well there's no pet before that, so before the hamster, so it will just be 0, which means I keep clicking this ask assistant, which means this will just be 600. Now let's plug it in for our cat, or our fish, sorry, let's change this to fish. I'll make the currency cash again, and I'll make the multiplier a whopping 3.6. So the rarity, so we want the fish to be 30%. So 30 over 100 is 0.3, times the rarity max is 300, plus the previous pet rarity is 600, so 300 plus 600 is 900. Now let's do the mouse, or the lizard, sorry, I forgot to change these names. So the lizard, which I will make gems, I'll make it a multiplier of 1.8. So we want 7.4%, divide that by 100, so 0.074%. Times that by the rarity max, so we'll have 74, and then add the previous pet rarity, so we get 974. Now let's do the bunny. Well, the bunny, or not the bunny, sorry, the fly. I need to remember to change these names, which will also be gems, and I'll make the multiplier 2.2. And we don't need to do any calculations for the last one, because it will always be equal to rarity max, so I'll just make it 1000. Now I'll do one more, I'll copy all of this again, and do one more for the legendary egg. I don't need a semicolon at the end this time, because this is the last egg I'm doing. So legendary egg. I'll make the rarity max 10,000, so we've got even more precision. I'll make the cost 2,500. And the animals I'll have a snake, which will have a 42.6% rarity. I will have a shark at 33.3% rarity. I'll have an octopus at 20.24% rarity. And I'll have a dragon at 3.86% rarity. Now, it's important to note, I can't remember if I said it earlier or not, your most common item must always be at the top. It must go in descending order of rarity. Otherwise, your RNG system will not work, because the way we actually implement the RNG later on, it's going to go in descending order of rarity, or ascending order of rarity, sorry. So descending order of the most common. So the name will be snake for the first one. It's going to affect cash with a multiplier of, I'll give it 5.6. So the rarity is 42.6%. Well, we know out of 10,000, that's 4,260. We don't need to do any formula really there. For the next pet, which is the shark, not the fish, I'll make this affect the cash by 7.2 on the multiplier. And this rarity, so we want it to be 33.3%. 33.3 divided by 100 is 0.333. So 0.333 times by 10,000 is 3,330. We add that to the previous pet rarity, which is 4,260. So we've got 4,260 plus 3,330, which will give us a result of 7,590. Now I can just remove that little calculation there. So now we've got the next is the octopus. Hopefully you're getting the gist of how this works. 20.24%, divide that by 100 is 0.2024. Multiply that by 10,000 will give us 2,024. And then add that to the previous pet rarity. So 2,024 plus 7,590 gives us 9,614. And the last one we know is equal to pet rarity, which is 10,000. And it's not the fly, it should be, I think it's the dragon. Yep, dragon. So let me just change these. So the octopus, I'll make it multiply gems by 2.6. And the dragon, I'll make it multiply gems by 3.6. There we go. That's it for the pet module. So just hit test and play and make sure you get no errors that the module's not working or anything. But it should work. I'm not sure you'd actually get any errors unless you have any red squiggly lines. But other than that, that's the pet module. Okay, now we need to create a few Billboard GUIs. So these are the pop-ups that will appear as you walk towards the egg. That will ask you to buy 1, 3, or auto buy eggs. So let's create the GUI. Now this is a bit of a pain, I'll be honest, to create. What I will do is, start by, in the starter GUI, open up, create a folder actually, just because it's a bit easier if we do it in a folder. I will rename the folder to egg billboards, because we're going to have a billboard for the basic, rare, and legendary egg. We're going to have a billboard for each egg. If you go into the description, like you did with my basic egg model, my template egg model, if you download my Billboard GUI model, bring it into your game the same way, and then we'll go from there. So let me actually just bring that over. Here we go. So inside of my egg billboards folder, I've got this template GUI that I've just dragged over from when I was actually creating this system. I'll just rename this back to basic GUI again. And again, I've got to reset the Adorny to the glass. But now you see, as we get close, this appears. So we've got a 1, 3, and auto, and it's just laid out nice and easy. Of course, you can feel free to make your own Billboard GUI, but I don't want to spend loads of time on it because obviously this video is going to be long enough as it is. There's plenty of tutorials out there on creating Billboard GUIs, so make sure if you are creating your own, make sure you do it properly. Otherwise you're going to end up with something that doesn't look amazing, but I think this will do. This sort of gives us the right idea. Now inside of the egg model, so let me go into our basic egg, and inside of the GUI trigger, I'm going to add in a script. And you remember we actually created this. I said that we will add a script which will just trigger this Billboard GUI. So let's actually do that now. So let's start by getting services. Well, the only service we need is the player service. So players equals game : get service players. And we'll get the trigger, which is script.parent. So trigger equals script.parent. So it's just the part that we're touching. And then we'll say function toggle billboard, passing in the hit and the state is just a boolean. You don't need to add this :boolean here, it's just so we know, we can easily tell what it is. So local player equals players, get player from character, hit.parent. If player, then get player Billboard GUI. If the player exists, then we're going to get the player's Billboard GUI. So we'll say local GUI equals player dot player GUI dot egg billboards : find first child basic GUI. So we're just going through the player's GUI. Dot egg billboards is the name of this folder, and then we're looking for the basic GUI. The player, basically anything in the starter GUI, when the player joins, it's added to the player inside of a folder or a sort of model named player GUI. So our egg billboards folder is added into player GUI automatically when the player joins. Once we've found it, we can then say if GUI and GUI.enabled is not state, then GUI.enabled equals state. And I'll explain this in a second. Let's just finish this off. So trigger.touched : connect function hit toggle billboard hit, true, and then we'll say trigger.touchEnded : connect function hit toggle billboard hit, false. I'm going to select our basic GUI, Billboard GUI, and I'm going to find the enabled property and disable it. By default, we want this to be disabled. We don't want any players to be able to see it. And what this is doing is if the player touches this area where this box is outlined here, we are going to get the player from the part that touched it. So I've explained this before, but hit is basically will be like the right arm or the right left arm or the right leg, left leg. The parent will always be the player. So if the player does exist, then we'll get the player's GUI. And if the GUI exists and the GUI is not the state that we're looking for, so if we're touching it, we're looking to set the billboard to true. If it's already true, there's no point in changing it. But if it's not already true, then we'll set the GUI enabled to true. And in contrast, we'll do the same with false. So if the GUI is enabled and we want it to not be enabled, then we'll disable it. Now we can close that, and as we go up to it, let's hit test and play. We should now be able to walk up to our basic egg model, and as we get close, it will enable our Billboard GUI here. Now, if you go too far back, even though you're in it, you won't be able to see it anymore because there is a max camera roll off distance. If you want to be able to go all the way back and still be able to see it, you can do that. You just go into the Billboard GUI, and where you find, I've got to find where it is now. It is one of these. The max distance here, you can change that, and then you'll be able to zoom in and out to however far you would like. Now I'll make that 20, and that's that. I won't do the same for the other eggs right now, because we haven't created those GUIs. And the reason we haven't created those GUIs is because we're going to create a handler inside of each of them. So we'll complete everything for the basic GUI, and then we'll duplicate it for the rare and the legendary GUIs. Now we need to create the inventory GUI, which is going to hold all the pets that we collect. So I've also made a model for this, and I'll drag this GUI into Starter GUI. Now, all this is it's an inventory button, and if we open it up and make the background frame visible, there's a frame here as well. So this has got a close button and open button. It's got an inventory header, the max size text, which is basically how many pets you have in your inventory out of the maximum you can have. Say you have 50 inventory slot size, this will maybe say 7 out of 50 pets. You've got the header here, which is nothing. The equipped number is how many pets you'll have equipped. For example, 0 out of 3, 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, or like 1 out of 5 if you get the game pass for it when we do that. We've got a name and a rarity button here, just to sort by name and rarity, so we can sort our pets. Close button, the pet frame, which is a scrolling frame with a grid layout in, which will basically contain all of the pets that we are going to have in our inventory. We've got the chosen frame, so when we select a pet in the inventory, this will come up with, let me make this visible, it will have the name of the pet, it will have an image of the pet, a description, which will basically be the boost, for example 1.5 times cash, an equip and a delete button. Anyway, let's make that visible false again, and also the same with the background, hide the background. Again, I'm providing these GUIs for you to use for easy access. I recommend you use them because then your code will all be the exact same as me. If you are using your own GUIs though, just note that your GUI, when it comes to scripting, any GUI stuff that I access will be different for you. But we'll come to that later on. So let's actually add a local script into the open button. And in here, we just want to open the button. So we'll say button equals script.parent, and the background is button.parent.background, because the button is the script.parent, the parent of the button is the inventory GUI, and we want to access the background frame, which is the button.background. Now we'll just say button.mousebutton1click :connect function, and in here we can say background.visible equals not background.visible, and this will set it to, if the background is not visible, it will make it visible. If it is visible, it will make it invisible. So it just toggles it. And that's that. Now I will duplicate that script and drag that into the background and then into the close button. So we will have the close button script, which is almost the exact same. We're just going to set background.visible to false. And now if we was to test and play, so we've got an error here. Background is not a valid member of frame. Players.yourplayername.playerGUI.inventory.GUI.background. But as we click it, it's working. It's just the close button that's not. So why is that? Well, let's open up the close button. So button is script.parent. That's correct. The background we're saying is button.parent is the background.background. There is no such background inside a background, so the background is just button.parent, because the button here is the close button, and the parent of this is the background. So now if we test it again, no errors this time, inventory, and we can close it. Perfect. So that's it for the inventory GUI. I just thought we'd get that done before we start actually buying the eggs. Okay, now we need to create the pet models. Now, this is a little bit confusing. Now, I'm going to leave a link in the description to a pet pack that you can get from the toolbox by Magic Fox, and this just has a bunch of pet models pre-made for us. I'll delete the pets models folder and just have these pets here because these ones are made up of more parts, so they're a bit easier to adjust. We've got a base template animal here as well, so if you want to design your own animal, you absolutely can do that. I'm not going to go through designing the animal models, otherwise we'll be here forever. But as you can see, if we was to look at, for example, the bunny here, it's got a lot more mesh parts just because it's got the ears as well. But everything is a mesh part. So I'll drag these pets into the workspace. I'll delete this model pack folder with the readme script. And I want to make all these pets look something like what I have. So I'm going to recolor them, redesign them, and I'll get back to you once I've got all the pets that I'm going to include. Okay, so I've basically just got the base model that we were given, duplicated it a bunch of times, changed the names to the names of all the pets I'm going to have, and I've just changed the colors. That's all I've done. I'm not going to worry about all the extra bits because I want to save time, but I've just duplicated the base model, changed all the colors. Now I want to add a face to each of these. If I select the bunny here and go over to it, it's a bit of a strange color. None of these colors actually represent the colors that the animal would be, but I want to add a face. So I'm going to find the main block, the main part, add a decal, and I'm going to select this face here. If you click on the decal, you can change the face in the properties. I'll make the face the front, which is this side. And I'll give you the ID in the description, but here it is, 255-206-6096, and it's just an ID of a little face here. I'll leave it in the description. And now I'll right click and copy this decal. I'll close the bunny and do the same for all the other pets here. So I want to find the main part of the cat, which is this part here, paste it in, and make sure that all the faces are always on the right side. Do the same for the dog. So this is on here, paste it in. The dragon. And I'll get back to you once I've done all of these. Okay, we're also going to do the pet movement script now because we may as well. That's what makes sense. So to do this, first we need to add into each pet an assigned player string variable because we want to store the name of each player that these pets are assigned to. So if I go into the bunny, I'll add a string value and I'll rename this to assigned player. And I'll duplicate this and put it into the cat. I'll put it into each pet here. There we go, so I've given each pet an assigned player string variable. Because when we actually put the pet with the player and have it follow the player, we need to know what player the pet's going to follow, and the way we'll do that is through this assigned player string. And next I'll add into just the bunny for now, I'll add a script, and I'll rename the script to pet movement. This will be our pet movement script. By default, the script will be disabled because we don't want the pet to be following the player when the game starts, only when the pet is equipped. So we'll disable the script at first and then enable it when the player is equipped. So let's start with some services. So players equals game : get service players. Tween service equals game : get service tween service. Run service equals game : get service run service. And server storage equals game : get service server storage. Now you're probably wondering, why are we getting server storage? Well, what we're going to do is have each of these pets stored in server storage so we can't see them. Because right now we can see them all. So I'm going to get every pet. I'm going to place them in the same position as well, because this will make the viewports easier when we worry about them later. So I'll find just one pet. So I'll get the dog, for example, and I'm going to go click on the dog model, get the position and copy it, and then I'm going to select every model in the pets model and paste their position where the dog is. So now they're all inside of each other. Now we can drag this pets model into server storage. Anyway, back into our script inside the bunny. I'll say pet equals script.parent, and this just gets the pet. Then we'll get the pet number, so pet number equals string.sub pet.name, 5, 5. So this will get the number pet it is. So when we equip a pet, say we've got 5 slots, for example, we're going to give it the name pet 1, pet 2, pet 3, like this for example, pet 1, pet 2, pet 3, and so on. So each time we duplicate these pets into the player to follow the player, we're going to rename them so we know what corresponding slot they belong to. So this will just get the number pet, for example. And the 5,5 just means we're getting the character at index 5, which if we're doing pet space and then the number is always index 5. cframe equals cframe.new minus 10 plus 5 times 2 number, pet number, 1, 5, like this. So this just means the pets are positioned at -5, 0, and 5, respectively, in the x coordinate. So basically they follow the player, they go around the player. So say if pet number is 5, so if there's 5 pets, so for the 5th pet, because if we've got the extra pet slots that we're going to do later on, for the 4th pet, it's going to have, so your indexes will be -5, 0, 5, and then 10. So for the 5th pet, we'll set it to -10. So relative cframe equals cframe.new -10, 1, 5. And all the 1 and 5 is, so 1 is the y, the height, and 5 is the z, the distance from the player. Now we'll get the tween info equals tween info dot new. This tween info must be all uppercase, and this one will have a lowercase t. And in here we'll add 1, enum.easingstyle.linear and enum.easingdirection.in. And this will basically be the way that the pet is animated to follow the player, how smoothly it follows the player. Okay, now we need to weld all these mesh parts together, because when we are actually running the game, we can't have the pet anchored, so select every single pet model and unanchor them. We can't have these pets anchored or they will not follow the player. They'll just stay in the same place. But if we was to actually test it and bring the pets into the workspace, now that we've unanchored them, all these mesh parts will just fall apart and they won't be connected anymore. It'll just be 5 different parts that float around. So we need to weld all these parts together to make sure they're still stuck together, but they're not anchored. Function weld model, passing in the model we want to weld. And in here we'll get the primary part. So local primary part equals model.primaryPart. Now we need to actually get the primary part. So each model is going to have a primary part, and the primary part will be the part that has the decal inside. So select the bunny model, or whatever your first pet is. In the properties where it says primary part, we're going to select that and select mesh part. It must be the mesh part that has the decal in. I've already done it for all of my pets, but if you haven't, just make sure you have. So select, for example, the dog, the primary part, and select the mesh part with the decal inside. And do that for all your pets. Once you've done that, we can continue. So if not primary part, then return end. But if the primary part doesn't exist, we don't want to continue, because otherwise it's going to throw us errors. If the primary part does exist, we'll say primary part.canCollide equals false. For underscore comma part in model :get children, do if part is a with an uppercase I, uppercase A, base part, and part is not equal to primary part, then. So we're going to loop through each part, each mesh part. If it is a mesh part and it's not the primary part, then we're going to add a weld to it, to the primary part. So we'll say part.canCollide equals false. Local weld equals instance.new weld constraint. Weld.part0 equals primary part. And weld.part1 equals part. Then we can say weld.parent equals primary part. And then we need to unanchor the part. So we'll say part.anchored equals false. So what we need to do actually, if we select our pets model, let's anchor everything first. Just select the pets model and select anchor to anchor everything by default. we'll start it all anchored, and then we'll only unanchor it when the script is enabled. Now we can call the world model, passing in the pet. And now let's actually update the pet position. So we'll get a new function, update pet position. And this will update the pet's position, fairly self-explanatory. So we need to constantly check for the player. In case they die and respawn, we need to check they exist. So local player name equals pet.assignedPlayer.value. Then local player equals players, find first child, player name. So we're going to look for the player name inside of the players. If the player exists, then if the player.character exists, then we'll get the humanoid root part, so local HRP for humanoid root part equals player.character, find first child, humanoid root part. Make sure it's spelled exactly how I've spelt it. If HRP then, so if the humanoid root part exists, which is the root part of the player, then we'll say local target C-frame equals HRP.C-frame times by the relative C-frame. Then local tween equals tween service, create, passing in the pet.primary part, the tween info, and C-frame will be equal to target C-frame in the table here. And then we can say tween play, just like this. And now we can say while wait do update pet position. And this is our script. We don't need to do a heartbeat as that is too demanding. So we can actually remove the run service. We're not going to need that now. I was going to do it in heartbeat function, but that would just be too demanding. We don't need to do it that often. So I'll just do a while wait do. So it's a bit confusing, this script. We're welding each part to the primary part and having the primary part follow the player, which means that every part that's welded to the primary part also follows the player. That's essentially what this does, and then this function welds it all together. It's a bit confusing. If you don't really understand the script, don't worry too much. Make sure you've got it all exactly how I have. But if you're not understanding it, do look into tween services and C-frames because they are very, very useful. Now we can close the pet movement script and we can duplicate this and put it inside of each pet. So I'm going to put one of these into each pet and then we'll be done with the pets for now. There we go. So that's each pet done. I'll just close all of them up. And then we need to move on to the Leaderstats because we need to add some stuff to the Leaderstats script. Close up server storage. Okay, so inside of our Leaderstats script, what I'm going to do is write most of it. I'm tempted to write all of it now. Let's do everything we'll need for the foreseeable part of the video. And then if we need to add anything else later on, we'll do that. So we'll just try and get most of it done now. So let's create a pets folder inside of the player to hold all of the pets information. So local pets equals instance.new, a new folder inside of the player. And I'll say pets.name equals pets. There's just a new folder inside of the player, named pets. And this will hold all our pet information. So for our chosen frame that we created in our inventory, we need a selected pet. So when we select the pet, we need an object value which will be set to the frame of the pet we've selected. It's a bit confusing to explain or understand at the moment, but hopefully later on you'll get a bit more of a grasp of how it works. Local selected pet equals instance.new. It'll be an object value inside of the pets folder. Selected pet.name equals selected. And now we'll also get an equipped pets folder, and this will hold all of our equipped pets. So local equipped pets equals instance.new, a folder, again, inside of the pets folder. So we've got a folder and a folder now. This equipped pets.name I'll set to equipped. And we'll also create a boosts folder, which will hold all of our boosts, like cash and gems boosts. So local boosts equals instance.new, folder inside of pets again. Equipped pets.name equals, not equipped pets, sorry. Boosts.name equals boosts. Now let's add the boost values to the player. So local cash boost equals instance.new, a number value inside of the boosts folder. This one should be a number value because cash, for example, you're going to have a 1.4 times multiplier. Unless you're having proper integer multipliers, so 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, if you're not having any decimals, you can use an int value. If you're having decimals, you need a number value, or it will just round it. CashBoost.name will be equal to cashBoost, and cashBoost.value. By default, the default multiplier should always be 1, because we don't, 1 times something is just something. It's nothing different. Now I'll copy these 3 lines, paste it down here, and I'll rename this to Gems Boosts. By default, again, it will be 1 inside of the boost folder, and this will just be named Gems Boost. Now we may as well do some inventory stuff as well. Max inventory size. So local max inventory size equals instance.new. This one will be an int value inside of the player. I won't have this in the pets folder because it's not directly related to pet effects. It's more just the inventory. So we don't need it in the pets folder because it's not really to do with the actual pet itself, more just how the pets are stored. Max inventory size.name. I'll just set to max inventory size. And max inventory size.value. By default, I'm going to have a max size of 50, so the player can have 50 pets in their inventory by default at a time. I'm going to show you how to do a game pass a bit later on, which will increase this to whatever value you want. But for now, by default, I think 50 is a good inventory size. We'll also do the same with pet slots, because I'll show you how to do a game pass where you'll be able to equip up to, for example, 5 pets, which I mentioned a bit earlier when we were doing the pet script. But by default, I want there to be 3 pet slots, so you can have 3 pets equipped at a time. So local pet slots equals instance.new, int value, again inside of the player, because it's not directly linked to the pets, it's just about how many you can have equipped. The name will just be equal to pet slots, and the value, by default, I think 3. I think having 3 pets equipped at a time just works. If you're not having 3 by default, then you will need to think about the pet movement script that we created, because here we're going to have 5, 0, and minus 5 on the x coordinate, which is perfect for 3. You just need to make sure these are evenly distributed, or they will just look a little bit strange. Anyway, now we can close the leader stats, and let me create a currency handler in the server script service. So add a new script. I'll rename this to currency handler, and this will just be a way to give you currency. Just because I don't actually have a method to get currency, if you already have your own currency system, then you don't really need to do this, but I'll show you how to apply the boosts. So say players equals game : get service players. And what I'm going to do is just every second give each player in the game 5 cash and 1 gem. So I'll say while task.wait 1. You noticed earlier I used wait, and here I'm using task.wait. Task.wait is a lot safer to use. I would always opt for task.wait, but you can just use wait on its own. But task.wait is the more formal, safer approach, so I would recommend using that. But underscore comma player in pairs, players : get players do. So basically we're looping through each player in the game here. We'll get their leader stats, so local leader stats equals player : find first child leader stats. If leader stats, then local pets equals player : find first child pets to get the pets folder. If the pets exists, then we'll get the boosts. Local boosts equals pets : find first child boosts. If the boosts folder exists, then we'll get the local cash boost will be equal to boosts : basically we get our boosts here, find first child cash boost, and we'll get our gems boost too. Local gems boost equals boosts : find first child gems boost. Make sure these are spelt the exact same as you've spelt them in the leader stats script, or it will not work. You'll get errors. We can say if the cash boost exists, then local cash equals leader stats : wait for child cash. Cash.value plus equals 5. I'm going to give myself 5 cash a second, and I'm going to multiply this by cashBoost.value. So this will include our multiplier into the cash amount. So if you have a different currency earning system, you want to multiply, get your cash boost from the boosts folder, as I've done here, and just multiply, whenever you earn cash, multiply it by the cash boost.value. And I'll do the same for the gems boost. So if gems boost, then local gems equals Leaderstats colon wait for child gems.value plus equals 1. So I'll give myself 1 gem per second, and I'll multiply this by gems boost.value. And that's my currency handler script. So if I now test and play, it will just increase my cash by 5 and my gems by 1 each second. Okay, I've just dragged in here a pet template, so I will leave this in the description as well. I might put all of this under one model. So just download it from the description. Again, the same way you have with the inventory GUI, for example, and the Billboard GUI. And this is a pet template. So this is what will go into the pet frame. So let me make the background visible in our inventory GUI. And if I drag this pet template into the pet frame, we get a little pet here. This is what it looks like. It's a viewport frame, so it will show a picture of the pet in the world. It's got the name text, which is this text label, an equipped text, which when visible says equipped, and it's got a button which covers, it's invisible, but it covers the whole area, so you can click it and it will be able to select the pet when we program that in. But if you're making your own, you need a button which covers the whole area, you need equipped text, and you need a text label. But I strongly recommend, until you've done it all and know what you're doing, just use the same GUI as me, or you're going to have problems and it will not work. Now I'm going to drag this pet template into the replicated storage. But first, because it's a viewport frame, let me hide the background again. We need to have it pointing, we need to have it referencing a camera pointing at the pets. So what I'm going to do is drag our pets back in. So server storage, drag our pets into the workspace. I'm going to lift them all up, just so once I've dragged them back into the workspace, what I'm going to do is click on the pets model, press F on my keyboard, and this will take me up close. And then top right, we see this little ball thing. I'm going to click the right, or whatever one is facing the pet here. And I'm just going to go back a little bit using S on my keyboard. So I'm still fairly close. And now I'm going to duplicate my camera and rename this to pet camera. And this pet camera will always be looking at the pet here. Now I can drag my pets back into back into server storage, sorry, and click on my pet template. And I can change the, somewhere it says current camera, I'm going to select pet camera. Now when I drag my pet template back into my inventory pet frame, make that visible again. If I actually get a pet, so let me get the bunny and drag it into the pet template, we can see it in the inventory. If the pet still looks quite far away, I can click on my pet camera and change the C frame position. I'll just change, you might have to try each of these until you get the right axis. It'll either be X or Z. For me, it's X. So if I change that to 94, it comes a little bit closer, and that's a bit better. So now that works. So once I'm happy with how that looks, I'll do the same with the chosen frame. So if I open the chosen frame, get the pet image, the current camera is going to be the pet camera. It's the exact same, because now that we've created that pet camera, we can just assign everything we need. So we need to assign the pet image in the chosen frame to the pet camera, and the pet template to the pet camera. Now I can drag the pet template into the replicated storage. I can put my bunny in the pet template back into my pets and server storage. And I can hide my background. Okay, now there's two more things that will be in the description. I'll probably put it all under one model, and you can just drag it all out as you need it. My egg hatching GUI and hatched GUI. So let's drag each of these into starter GUI. By default, they are, if I just go into it, so there's a folder here on egg hatching named single egg. If we open it, it's got a basic egg, because my first egg is basic egg. That's what I'm working on. If this is not called basic egg and it's called something else, you must rename this viewport frame to the name of this egg. If this is something like common egg, this viewport frame must be named common egg. And in here, I've got the basic egg. So if I go into my basic egg here, my egg, the actual egg model, get the color of that, paste it into this egg here, and rename this. So if it's common, this egg will be called common. But because mine's called basic egg, this egg's called basic. It's very important you have that naming in place. Now I've done all the positioning for you. So if you make this viewport frame visible, the camera's already in place. Nothing needs changing here. And all we've got is the egg in the middle of the screen. And this will be the egg that will appear on the screen as it, rotates. As I say, we're only going to worry about the basic egg for now, but we can hide this. We don't need it to be visible. We'll also get the hatched GUI here and place that into starter GUI. And again, so we've got our single egg, and in here we've just got a viewport frame named pet. And this is the pet that gets hatched. So if I make this visible, it is visible. If I drag a pet into here, I've already done it. So if I get a bunny, duplicate it and put it in here, nothing's happening. So I do actually need to change the viewport frame. What I'll do is just set the current camera to our pet camera, and then it works on here. But this one is very, very big, very close to the screen. So what I could do is duplicate the pet camera, and I could make this and rename this to, I could call this opened camera. And I will just set this on a little bit further back. So let me set this pet viewport frame. Let me set the current camera to the opened camera. And I'll just change the C frame. I'll just change the C frame position on here. Make the X position go a bit further back. 99 is good. There we go. So you've just got to play around with your C frame position on that camera. There we go. Now I can delete that bunny. So if you've got a problem with your basic egg and the egg's not showing, just get the egg inside, drag it into the workspace, and set up a camera looking at that egg. And then just have the current camera set to that egg. But it should all be put across. I'll do it again anyway. So basic, drag my basic egg in here. It's under the map, but if I just go to it, I will duplicate this opened camera and rename this to egg camera. And now, if I select my egg, here it is. Just select the right, just so I'm looking directly at it. Get my current camera position. So copy my C frame position. Go to the egg camera and paste it in. And now it will be looking at the egg. And now I can drag the basic egg back into the basic egg viewport frame. Change the current camera to the egg camera here. And it's very, very close. It's very large. So what I can do to resize this is select my egg camera, and I'll go a bit further on the X position. There we go. That looks good. And now I can just hide the egg viewport frame. So that's those frames. If it's a bit confusing, viewport frames are quite confusing. There's plenty of good tutorials out there on viewport frames, which I recommend you go ahead and look at. I don't have time in the video to go through everything, so that's why it seems like I might be trying to rush through some of it. It's a very, very long video. If anyone wants more detail and more of an explanation on anything, let me know and I can make a mini series. Once I've done this full video, I could split it up into multiple smaller ones where I go through it in more detail. If anyone wants that, let me know and I will look into it. Now we need to add our GUI handler. So in the egg billboards, add into our basic GUI, open the background. In our background, we're going to add a local script. I'll rename this to GUI handler. And before we start coding in here, we need to add a hatch egg and purchase egg remote event to replicated storage. So open replicated storage and add a new folder. I'll rename this to events, and I'll add a remote event in here. I'll rename this to hatch egg, and I'll duplicate it and rename the second one to purchase egg. Now in here, let's get services. So this is one of our most complicated scripts that we're going to write. It's going to start fairly simple, but throughout the video it's going to build and it's going to get very complicated. So players equals game colon get service players. Ultimately, we're going to need the player service, replicate storage, user input, and tween service. So I'll put all of these in here now. So if I just bring these in, so we've got the players is game colon get service players, replicated storage is game colon get service replicated storage, user input service is game colon get service user input service, and tween service is game colon get service tween service. Next, we'll get the player, so we can just say player equals players dot local player, and we need to get the configs. So configs is replicate storage colon wait for child configs, and then we'll get our pet module equals require. Whenever you get a module script, you have to require it, so use this require method, passing in configs colon wait for child pet module. So we're going to require the pet module from the configs folder. Next, we'll get our events, which will be events equals replicated storage colon wait for child events, and we need our purchase egg remote event and our hatch egg remote event. So purchase egg remote event is events colon wait for child purchase egg, and hatch egg remote event is events colon wait for child hatch egg. Next, we'll get our buttons. So the single button is script.parent square brackets 1. And then because it's just a number, we can't just do .1. We have to do square brackets and then in quotation marks, the number 1. So we're looking for our 1 button, and then we've got our triple button is script.parent and then number 3. And then we've got our auto button is script.parent.auto. We won't use the triple and auto yet, but we'll put them in here for now for later on. Next, let's get the inventory GUI. So the inventory GUI equals script.parent is the background. .parent again is the basic GUI. .parent again is the egg billboards, and .parent again is starter GUI. Colon wait for child inventory GUI. Colon wait for child background. So this will get the inventory and then wait for the background. So it's a long line of code, a lot of parents, a lot of waiting for childs. But once we've got that, we can then get the pet frame, which is just inventory GUI.pet frame. We can get the pet inventory template, which is replicated storage colon wait for child pet template. It's the pet template we've just made. Get our max size text, which will be inventory GUI.max size. Equipped number text is inventory GUI.equipped number, and the hatched GUI equals inventory GUI. .parent is the inventory GUI. .parent, because remember inventory GUI is the background. The parent of that is the starter GUI. Then we can say .hatched GUI. Now, if you've created your own GUI, all of these lines here might be different for you. If you've named them different things or they're in different positions, this will all be different. Hopefully you can see what I'm trying to access. If not, pause and have a careful read. Inventory GUI is the background frame. Hopefully you can understand what I'm trying to access. If you don't, I recommend you follow my GUI for now and then look back through it later. If anyone needs a better explanation, let me know, and as I say, I'll make a mini series and I'll go through it and properly explain everything. I'm just trying to get through this because time is getting long. Let's start by setting the initial max size text and equipped number text. Obviously without saving and loading, it'll be 0 out of 3 and 0 out of 50, but I'll add a wait 2 seconds. Just to make sure when we add game passes, it takes a second for the game passes to be checked and also for the saving and loading to work. So just add wait 2 and we'll say default max size equals player colon wait for child max inventory size. And then we'll say max size text equals pets colon. And then we're going to concatenate using 2 dots, to string, the number of player, colon, wait for child, pets, colon, get children, uppercase C, which I've missed out. And then we're going to subtract 3 from that. Because if you remember, we have, if we go into our Leaderstats script, these 3 instances here are inside of the pets folder. And we're also going to, whenever we add pets, we're going to put them in the pets folder. So we want to get the number of pets, but because there's 3 extra instances in there which aren't pets, we need to subtract them from the number. Hashtag means number of. And we can concatenate a /, ... toString, default max size dot value. Next, let's get our default slot size, which will be player, wait for child, pet slots. And then equipped number text dot text equals, I'll put it as loading out of, and then concatenate, so ... toString default slot size dot value. So when we do the saving and loading, this won't be accurate anyway, so it'll just get updated. So I might as well put it as loading for now, so the player knows it's loading. And let's get the Billboard GUI. Billboard GUI script.parent, which is just a basic GUI here. Finally, we'll get the egg type, which will be basic egg. This is just a type of egg. So this has to correspond exactly to the name of this basic egg model here. Exactly, or it will not work. And if we open up the pet module, it must correspond exactly to the name of this egg here. Otherwise, it will not work. Make sure it's exactly the same. You need to be consistent with your code. Next, we'll say cost equals pet module, in square brackets, egg type, dot cost, accessing that cost value. And that's all the variables we'll need for now. First, let's create a function to purchase the egg. Function purchase egg. In here, we're going to check if the player has enough cash to buy the egg. So local Leaderstats equals player, find first child Leaderstats. If Leaderstats, then local cash equals Leaderstats, wait for child cash. If cash.value is greater than or equal to the cost, then, so if they have enough cash, then what we'll do is check if player has enough space for another pet. So if their inventory size isn't full. So local pets number equals pet frame, get children. And our pet frame, it already has a UI grid layout in there. So we'll say local max size equals player, wait for child, max inventory size. If the number of pets number -1, so we're minusing 1 because of our UI grid layout, is less than the max size dot value, then we have enough space so we can subtract the costs from cache on the server, which we're going to do in the pet handler script, which we'll create in a minute. So I'll put C pet handler script for server side, just so we've got some comments so we know what's going on. So purchase egg, remote event, fire server, passing in the cache and the cost. Next, we will hatch the egg. So we'll call the hatch egg function, which we'll create in a minute. And then we'll say else, warn, inventory is full. There we go. Now let's add our hatch egg function. So function, so just above the purchase egg, we'll create a new function named hatch egg. And in here, we'll get the egg frame. So local egg frame is player.player GUI, .egg hatching GUI, .single egg, find first child, passing in the egg type. So what I mean by the egg frame, so inside the player's GUI, they're going to have the egg hatching GUI. It's a single egg, so we'll open up the single folder, finding this basic egg. So the egg frame is this frame just here. This is the egg frame. And what we want to do is set that to visible so we can see the egg appear. So eggFrame.visible equals true. Next, we'll wait 0.2 seconds just for the animation. So I want it to be still for 0.2 seconds, and then we'll make it shake, and then we'll open it. So we'll call the shake egg function, passing in the egg frame, which we'll create in a minute, and then we'll call the open egg function, passing in the egg frame. So let's start with the shake egg. So function shake egg passing in the egg, taking the egg frame as an argument. Local shake info equals tween info dot new, and in here we're going to have the duration, which is 0.2. We need commas separating these as well. The easing style, which will be linear. The easing direction, which I'll set to in out. And then 0. This is the repeat count. We don't want the animation to repeat because we're going to define the sequence anyway. So we don't want to repeat it. So we just set that to 0. And then true, which is reverse. So this is basically if we want to reverse it or not, which we do. And then finally 0, which is the delay time. And obviously we don't need a comma after the last item in this list here. Next we'll get our shake sequence. So local shake sequence equals, and this will be essentially how we're going to shake it. So I want to start by shaking it 25 degrees to the right, then 25 to the left, and I'll do that a few times. So I'll say rotation equals 25 in curly braces here. I'll just copy this and paste it in a few times. There we go. So we're going to do 25 degrees to the right, then 25 to the left, so we need a minus, then 25 to the right, then the left, then the right, then the left, and then we'll just go back to the center, and then we'll open it. And now let's actually call this, so let's shake one egg. So let's actually run this tween. So for underscore comma goal in shake sequence, so for each goal here, so this is a goal, this is a goal, this is a goal, we want to fire a tween with that goal in mind. Local tween equals tween service, colon create, passing in the egg frame, the shake info, and the goal. And then we can say tween colon play, and then tween dot completed colon wait. So this will wait until the tween has been completed. And then once the tween's been completed, we'll go back to here, and then we'll open the egg. So let's create our open egg function. Function open egg. And this will give a random pet from the egg. So we need the egg frame in here, again, as a parameter. So we'll open one egg. Now we'll also use this to open 3 eggs when we add the by 3. But for now, let's just do 1 egg. So we're going to call a function, a local function named open single egg, which will pass in the egg frame and the single, and a text that says single, all in lowercase. And you'll see why we do that later when we create the triple egg. Now we're going to create a local function inside of the open egg. So to do this, we need to say local function, open single egg. And in here, we're going to take the frame and the underscore type. Just use an underscore because type is an already used keyword in Lua. So we can't really use that. So let's start by getting the rarity. So local max rarity equals pet module, egg type, dot rarity max. And then we'll get the rarity chosen. So local rarity chosen equals math.random. And this is where we pick a random number between 1 and the max rarity. Now, so that will pick, for example, 97. If it's 97, going back into our pet module, if it picks 97 on our basic egg, that's between 90 and 100, which means it will pick the bunny. That's how it works, essentially. So let's get the corresponding pet. For I, pet table, in I pairs, pet module, egg type, dot pets do. So this will loop through each pet table in the pets table. So if we look at our pets table here, it's full of a bunch of tables with each pet. So each pet is its own table, essentially. So if it's the first pet in the table, there is no previous pet. So if I minus 1 is 0, so if there's no index before this, then if the rarity chosen is less than the pet module, passing in the egg type, dot pets, I plus 1 dot rarity, then we will reward pet, passing in the pet table, frame, and underscore type. We will create the reward pet function after this, and then we'll break. So this looks really confusing. Essentially, we're checking if our chosen rarity, if there's no pet before this, so the first pet, if we're looking at the first pet, which is the dog, there's no pet before it, then we want to check if the rarity is less than the rarity of the pet after. So if it's less than, so the pet after is 75. So if it's less than that, then we'll reward the pet with this pet. Now for our if I minus 1 equals 0, I'm going to add an else if I is equal to the number of pet module, egg type, dot pets, then. So this is if the last pet in the table, there is no next pet. So if it's just equal to the number of pets, so if I, the index, is equal to the number of pets, which is 4, so we're on the 4th item, then we'll just check if the rarity chosen, I'll just copy this here, this if statement, I'll just make some changes. So we want to check if the rarity chosen is greater than the pet module egg type dot pets and the previous rarity, then we will reward the pet with this pet frame. And finally, we'll do one more else if, or we'll just do else, and this will be, paste it in again, if rarity chosen is less than the next rarity, and, I'll add an and, copy this line again, the rarity chosen is greater than the previous rarity, then reward the pet with this pet table. Now I've actually got to make an adjustment here. This should just be I in this first if statement, because we want to just check if it's less than this rarity here, or equal to, if it's less than or equal to 50. Now we can do our reward pet function. So this will reward the player with a pet. So function reward pet, and we're going to take the pet table, the egg frame, and the type, so single or triple. Let's start by hiding the egg picture. So egg frame dot visible equals false. Now let's display the pet in the viewport and add the pet to the inventory. So local hatched folder, and then if underscore type is single, then hatched folder equals hatched GUI dot single egg. You'll see why we do this hatched folder when we do the triple, but essentially we're going to set this either to the single egg or the triple egg folder in our hatched GUI, because when we do the triple eggs, we're going to do a triple egg folder later on. Next we can say hatch egg colon fire remote event, colon fire server, pet table, pet inventory template, pet frame, egg type, and the hatched folder. There's quite a lot to pass in there, and you'll see why shortly when we do that. Then we're going to wait for the pet to be added to the inventory. We will change this later on, we'll make it wait more efficiently. And then we'll update the max size text. We'll say local pets number equals pet frame, colon get children, local max size equals player, colon wait for child, max inventory size. And max size text dot text will be equal to pets, colon space, going to concatenate toString the number of pets number, -1, dot dot forward slash, dot dot toString, max size, dot value. We need to subtract 1 because this code runs after the pet is cloned into the pet frame, and of course we've got that grid layout in the pet frame. And this is it. So this will update all the text and stuff. It's a bit confusing. Of course, if your GUI is different, then your text and stuff will be different. That's why I recommend you follow along with the GUI I've used. But if you are using your own, hopefully you can figure out how to access it. All you really need to change is this stuff here. You need to change how you're accessing it. Other than that, it shouldn't be too difficult. Now we can close the GUI handler and the pet module. And next we need to... oh, sorry, there's one more thing we need to do in the right at the bottom of the GUI handler, we'll say we need our methods to actually handle the button clicks. So single button dot mouse button one click :connect function purchase egg. We don't need the whole function and then call purchase egg in here. We could just do :connect and then purchase egg, but we're going to add parameters to purchase egg later on when we do the triple egg. So we're going to need to do this in the end anyway, so may as well just do it now. And now let's do user input service dot input began :connect function input. So input is a collection of input data. If E is clicked and the GUI is visible, then we want to purchase the egg. Because what I've done is I'll show you when we test it, but I've put text on there on my Billboard GUI. So if they press E, it will open a single egg. I believe T for triple and Y for auto. So I'll say if input dot keycode is equal to enum dot keycode dot E and Billboard GUI dot enabled is true. We need to check that the Billboard GUI is also enabled, because otherwise we'll just open an egg even if they're nowhere near the egg. So we need to make sure it's enabled as well. And then we'll just say purchase egg and call that function. And that's it. Now we can close GUI handler. And now in server script service, we need to add a new script. I'll rename this to pet handler, and we're almost there. There's not as much in this script at the minute. So we'll start by getting services. The only two services we need at the minute are replicated storage and server storage. So I'll just add those in. So replicated storage is game:get service replicated storage, and server storage is game:get service server storage. Next we'll get the pet models. So pet models is server storage: wait for child pets. It's just that group, that model of pets that's in our server storage. This model here. And next we'll get events. Events equals replicated storage: wait for child events. And we need our purchase egg remote event, which is events: wait for child purchase egg. And we need our hatch egg remote event. I'm using RE for short for remote event, but you've probably figured that out by now. It's going to be events: wait for child hatch egg. Next I'll get configs. So configs equals replicated storage: wait for child configs. And pet module equals require configs: wait for child pet module. So let's do our purchase egg remote event. So purchase egg remote event dot on server event :connect function, and we're taking the player, the cache, and the cost. The player is automatically passed through when you fire the server from a client. The players automatically pass through, and if you remember, we pass the cache and the cost ourselves. Next we can just say cache.value minus equals cost. And the reason we're doing this on a server script is because whenever you change a cache value or any sort of value, you should always try and do it in a server script, because if you do it on the client, it's not actually going to change. It's only going to look like it's changed for the player, but for the rest of the server, it's still the same. And then our final function, so hatch egg remote event dot on server event :connect function. We're going to take our player, the pet table, the pet inventory template, the pet frame, the egg rarity, and the hatched folder. And we're going to get our pet model, so local pet model equals pet models, wait for child, find first child, sorry, pet table.name. So we're going to find in our pet group the exact pet we're looking for. So if it's the cat, if the name of the... So if pet table.name, so pet table is this table here, the name is dog, for example, we're going to find the model named dog. And if that model exists, so if pet model, then we'll say pet model equals pet model : clone. We're just going to duplicate the model and then set its parent, so dot parent, to the hatched folder dot pet. So our hatched folder is this single egg basic egg here. No, it's not, sorry. So our hatched egg is this single egg, this pet viewport frame. So it'll just come into the viewport frame. Next we'll add the pet to the inventory. Local pet GUI equals pet inventory template : clone. So the pet inventory template is our template in replicated storage. We'll say pet GUI, we'll say local pet clone, sorry, equals pet model clone. And then pet clone.parent equals the pet GUI. And then we'll say pet GUI.name equals pet table.name. Pet GUI.text label.text equals pet table.name. So this updates the name text. Then pet GUI.parent equals pet frame. So put the GUI in the frame. And now we need to add the pet to the pets folder inside the player. So local pets folder equals player : wait for child pets. Local pet instance equals instance.new string value inside of the pets folder. All of our pets that we have in our inventory are going to be stored as string values inside of the player's pets folder. The name of the instance, so pet instance.name, would just be equal to the name of the pet, so pet table.name. And the value, the pet instance.value, will be equal to the egg rarity. So each string value inside of the player's pets folder, is going to represent a pet. The name of the pet will be the name of the pet. The name of the instance will be the name of the pet. And the value of the instance will be the rarity. It will be the egg that we got the pet from. Because we're going to need that later on, and you'll see why later on. Next, we'll wait 2 seconds, and then pet model : destroy. So the 2 seconds is just how long it appears on the screen for. Now we can close the pet handler script, and let's test and play. So if I open the inventory, we've got nothing in here. If I click the 1 button, it takes away 100 cash, opens the pet, it gives us this pet here. If I click my inventory, we've got a cat now. I can't click it and equip it yet, we'll do that shortly. And also if I press E, it also buys the pet for 100 cash. And this time I got a mouse. Not doing too bad. If I just keep doing this, we'll get a different one each time. So obviously dog is the most probable. Okay, now we need to add equipping and deleting before we can do our buy free eggs. Because we've now got them in our inventory, we need to be able to actually equip the pets and delete pets if we don't want them anymore. So to get started, we need to add a remote function to replicated storage named select pet. So let's open up our events, add a remote function. And the reason we're using a remote function and not a remote event is because when you use a remote function, you must return something. Basically, the script that you fire or invoke the function on is expecting a return, and we are going to expect a return. So let's rename this remote function to select pet. And you'll see more about that shortly. Now let's go into our pet template and add a local script. I'll rename this to pet template. And in here, we're basically going to handle updating all of our chosen frame GUI. So we'll start with the same thing we do with everything. So we'll start by getting services. So we need the player service. So players equals game : get service players. We need replicated storage. So replicated storage is game : get service replicated storage. We'll also get the player. So player equals players.local player. We'll get the events. So we need our events folder. So events equals replicated storage : wait for child events, and select pet rf, which is just short for remote function, equals events : wait for child select pet. Next, we'll get the template. So template is just script.parent. And we'll also get the button, which is this button here, which covers the whole area of the template, so the player can actually click it. So button equals template.button. And finally, we'll get some configs. So get configs. We'll get our configs folder, which is replicated storage : wait for child configs. And pet module is require configs : wait for child module. And I know I've not explained this yet, I just assumed that everyone would know, but I may as well go through it. So the reason we use wait for child is because this waits until the object exists in the game. If this code is ran before the object exists, we're going to get errors. If you use find first child, that will just see if it exists, and if it doesn't, it will just set it to nil. Now let's call a function when the button is clicked. So I'll say button.mouseButton1click :connect function. And in here, we'll start by getting the name text, the chosen frame, and the equip button. So local underscore name equals template dot text label dot text. So we're just getting this text label inside of our template, which is where we'll display the name. We'll get our chosen frame. Local chosen frame is template, and this template is going to be duplicated inside of the pet frame in our inventory each time there's a new pet. So when this code actually runs, the pet template here is going to be inside of pet frame, and we want to get the equip button and the chosen frame. So we'll start with the chosen frame. So to get to the chosen frame, it's going to be in pet frame. So it's template.parent is the pet frame. So .parent. .parent again is the background. So .parent, and then we want to do .chosen frame. It's not going to auto-fill this bit in for you because at the minute it's in replicated storage, but it will be in the pet frame when we run this code. Now we can say local equip button equals chosen frame dot equip button. Okay, now we're going to check for the children inside of the chosen frame pet image viewport here. If there's already a pet in here, we need to remove it before we add a new one. Otherwise, it's just going to add loads of objects into here. Because obviously, when we click on a pet, we're going to have the pet appear in this viewport frame. So there's going to be the pet is going to be duplicated as a child inside of the pet image viewport. So we need to check that we need to remove any previous ones before we add this one. We'll say if the number of chosen frame dot pet image, make sure you spell it all exactly, :get children is greater than 0, then, so if there's more than one child, if there's more than 0 children, then there already is a pet inside of the pet frame, so we'll remove it. We'll say for I, v in pairs, chosen frame dot pet image, :get children, do if v is a uppercase I, uppercase A, model, because in the server storage all of our pets are models, so we'll check if it's a model. If it is, we know it's a pet. Then we can say v destroy, and that will remove it. Now let's change the color of the equip button. So when it's equipped, I want to update the text to say unequip, and I want the color to go to a reddish color. If it's already unequipped and we want to equip it, I need the text to say equip, and I want it to be a greenish color. I'll say if template.equipped.visible equals true, then. So that is in our template here, the .equipped, this is the equipped text. This is the text that I showed earlier that says equipped over the top. If that's visible, we know the pet is equipped. Then we can say equip button.text equals unequip. Equip button.background color free equals color free from RGB. I'm going to do 255, 85, 85. That's a nice little color, but you can select it manually. And then we'll say else, copy these two lines here and paste them in. This one will say equip, and I'll make this one a green color, so 0, 255, and 72. Now the reason we've done underscore name up here, make sure you do underscore name, is because we're going to create another variable now, which is just going to be called name. It's going to be a bit confusing. What we could do, actually, we can just call this one name rather than underscore name, and we'll call the next one name text. So let's get our pet object. So local pet object equals select pet remote function, invoke server, passing in the name, the template, and the chosen frame. Basically, this select pet remote function is going to return the pet that gets put in the frame. So this is a pet object. This will basically be our pet model. But if the pet object exists, then we'll get the name. So local name text equals chosen frame dot name text. Because in our chosen frame, I've got a text label here named name text. And local description equals chosen frame dot description. Now I can say name text dot text equals name. And let's do the pet description now. So for the pet description, we need to get the pet folder, and we need to get the multiplier from the pet table. We'll say local pets folder equals player, wait for child pets, and then local pet equals pets folder, wait for child name. So we're going to wait for an object to exist within the pets folder with the same name as the pet we're trying to equip, because that's where all our pets get added into the pets folder. I'll say local pet table equals pet module, passing in pet.value, because remember, the value of the string value that we put inside the player for each pet, the value of that, so the name is the name of the pet and the value is the rarity of egg. And you can see why we've done that now, because now we can access that egg rarity just by using the value. And then we can say dot pets. Now we can go and loop through this pet table. So for index, pet in iPairs, pet table, do if pet.name is equal to name, then now I'll show you how to format the description to something like this comment here. So just say description.text equals toString pet.multiplier dot. I'm going to put an X here and then a space just to get that 1.2 times, and then dot pet.currency, and this will be for the cash or the gems. And now after all of this, we can actually show the chosen frame. So chosen frame dot visible equals true. And that's it for the pet template script. So I can close that up. Before we move on to everything else, I just want to update the Leaderstats script again. So let me open up the Leaderstats script. I'm just going to add 3 object instances to the equipped pets folder, and these will be our slots, our pet slots. So for I equals 1, 3, do local pet instance equals instance.new object value inside of the equipped pets folder, and I'll say pet instance dot name equals pet base dot I. So this will create 3 instances within the equipped folder, and these will be our pet slots basically. By default, we've got 3 pet slots. If your default is say 4, your default I equals 1, 4. This will create 3 instances named pet 1, pet 2, and pet 3, and this is what we'll use to assign our equipped pets to. Now we can close the Leaderstats script. I just wanted to add that little bit there. Now to replicate storage in our events folder, I'm going to add a remote event and rename it to equip pet. And I'll add another remote event and rename this one to unequip pet. And I'm going to add another remote function and rename this to calculate equipped slots. And we'll use this to figure out how many equipped slots we have, and if we have enough to keep equipping pets later on. Now let's find our equip button and add a local script, and I'll rename this to equip. In here, we need to get the players and the replicate storage services, so that's the exact same as we've already done. We'll also get the player, and we need the events folder, the equip pet remote event, the unequip pet remote event, and the calculate equipped slots remote function. So it's the exact same as we've already done. I want to save a little bit of time by just doing it, but feel free to pause the video and catch up if you don't understand what's going on. Next, we'll get the button, which is script.parent. We'll get the pet image, which is button.parent.petImage, because the parent of the button is the chosen frame, .petImage is the viewport. And then we'll get the pet frame is button.parent.parent.petFrame, because the parent of the button is the chosen frame, and the parent of that is the background, .petFrame, the pet frame's in the background. Now let's just write the function to calculate our equipped slots. Function calculate equipped slots, passing in the number of equipped slots. We'll say local number of equipped slots pets equals calculate equipped slots remote function, invoke server, passing in our equipped slots. Local equipped number text equals, and that will be this text here that says equipped number. So this will be button.parent.equipped number. Local number of slots equals player, wait for child, pet slots. So this is the number of maximum slots the player actually has. Then we can say equipped number text dot text equals toString the number of equipped pets dot dot a forward slash dot dot toString the number of slots dot value. So this will show if we've got 2 equipped pets, 2 out of 3, if our number of slots is 3. Now let's say button dot mouse button one click connect function, and in here we're going to check if the pet is equipped or not. If the pet isn't equipped, we'll equip the pet, and if the pet is equipped, we'll unequip the pet. So sort of bear with me here because this one's a little bit confusing. Local pets folder equals player, wait for child pets. So let's check if it's equipped or not. So local selected pet equals pets folder, wait for child selected. And local equipped text equals selected pet dot value dot equipped. So this one's a bit hard to explain without showing you. But when we select a pet, what we're going to do is set the selected value, which we created in the Leaderstats here. So this selected instance, we're going to set that to the template, the pet template object in the pet frame. So we can get the equipped text inside of the pet template because the selected pet dot value will be the pet template. Dot equipped is the text inside of the pet template. Then we can say local equipped folder equals pets folder, wait for child, equipped. Now, we know that the pet's not equipped if the equipped text is not visible. So if equipped text dot visible is false, then we need to equip the pet. So to do that, we'll loop through each pet slot. So for I, v in pairs, equipped folder, get children do. So we're going to loop through each slot, and if the value, so v.value is nil, then that means that nothing's been equipped to that slot. So we have an empty slot. So that means we'll just assign it to that slot. So first of all, we'll do the sort order for the pet. So by this, I mean the way it's laid out. So when we've got multiple pet frames, pet images inside of the pet frame, we're going to say we've got 10. If we equip one, we want it to be displayed right at the top, the very first one that's displayed, and we can adjust that using the layout order. So we can say selected pet dot value dot layout order equals -i, uppercase L, uppercase O on layout order. And the reason we do -i is because lowest numbers are always displayed first. So if we say I is, for example, 4, then it's going to be -4, which is lower than everything else, because everything else will be, by default, be 0. Now let's equip the pet if an empty slot exists. So let's call the equip pet remote event, fire server, passing in the equipped folder, I, the equipped text, the button, and selected pet.value.name. Now we'll just add a quick wait here. And what this wait will do is just wait a very split second just for this equip pet remote event to finish running. If this is quicker than this pet here, actually this remote event calls, then you may need to gradually increase the wait time in here. For example, 0.2, 3, 4, 5. Don't put it too long though, or there'll be a bit of a delay. But if you notice that the equipped number is 1 behind how many pets you actually have equipped, you may need to gradually increase this text. Now I'll say local equipped slots equals equipped folder colon get children. Calculate equipped slots, passing in the equipped slots. And now we'll say equipped text dot visible equals true to set that equipped text visible, which means that it's equipped. And then we can say button dot text equals unequip, and say button dot background color free equals color free dot from RGB, passing in 255, 83, and 85, or sorry, 8585, just the same color you had earlier in our other script. I've spelled text wrong here. There we go. And then right at the end, I'll just say break to break out of the loop if we've equipped the text, because once we've equipped it, we don't need to keep doing this. If we don't break out of the loop, it's going to equip it into every slot. We want to break out of it once we've equipped. And now, right after, before the last end for this if statement, I'll go back and say else. And I'm going to copy all of this code and paste it in here. But this will be to unequip the pet. So we'll loop through each pet slot again. So the same thing. If v.value, rather than it being nil, this time we're going to check if it's equal to selected pet.value. Because if the value is equal, because we're assigning the value, when we fire the server, we're going to assign the value to the pet template. So if the pet template in the pet slot is equal to the selected pet template, then we know it's the same pet. So we want to set the layout order back to 0, so it's unequipped. Then we need to unequip the pet. And to do that, we will say, rather than equip pet remote event, unequip pet remote event, colon fire server. Again, passing in the equipped folder I, we don't need the equipped text, just the button. And we need the selected pet.value.name. Again, we need this wait here. And we need to update the equipped slots text. And then we'll set the equipped text.visible to false. Set the buttons text to equip. And the background color to that green again. There we go. And that is it for the equip script. I know it's quite a confusing one, but we can close that up now. Now we need to add a local script into the delete button. So I'll rename this one to delete. So we're going to get the players and the replicated storage service. We're going to get the player. And we're also going to get the unequipped pet remote event, the delete pet remote event, and the calculate equipped slots remote function. And in terms of GUI, we'll get the button, which is script.parent. We'll get the equip button, which is button.parent.equip button. And we'll get the max size text, which is button.parent.parent.max size. So again, we're going to have our calculate equipped slots function in here. So I'm going to just copy it from the equip button and paste it in here. It's the exact same thing. And what I'm going to do is from our equip button, I'm going to copy this entire code from this button here and just paste it in. So we'll say button.mouse button one click colon connect function. And in here, I'll just paste all the code from our equip button and we'll make changes as necessary. So we need the pets folder and we need the selected pet. We don't need the equipped text or the equipped folder here. So what we need to do next is unequip the pet if it is equipped. We'll say if equip button dot text is equal to unequip, then because if the text is unequipped, because if the text says unequip, then that means the pet is equipped. And so then we need to check if the pet is equipped or not. We can say local equipped text equals selected pet.value.equipped. And then get the equipped folder as well. Local equipped folder equals pets folder, colon wait for child equipped. And here we will unequip the pet. So we'll loop through each pet slot, just like we did with the unequip. So I'm going to copy this code in the else part of the if statement. and just replace this for loop up here. And now we can remove the else part. We're not going to need the else part. Just make sure you've got the right end there. So for I, v in pairs, equip folder, get children do. If v.value selected pet.value, then we don't need to worry about the layout order because it's getting deleted anyway. So there's no point adjusting the layout order. We'll unequip the pet. Again, doing the weight, redo the equipped slots, and then we don't need to worry about the equipped text or the button text because it's getting deleted anyway. So we can just remove that and just have the break. Now after the if statement, we need to actually delete the pet. So local chosen frame is button.parent. Local pet name is selectedPet.value.name. Local name text is button.parents.nameText. Local description text is button.parent.description. And then we'll say delete pet remote event fire server. Passing in the chosen frame and the pet name. Next, we'll remove the template from the pet frame. So we'll say selected pet dot value destroy, and that'll destroy the template in the pet frame because it is linked to that. Then we will hide the chosen frame because it doesn't need to be visible anymore. We can say chosen frame dot visible is false, and then we need to update the pet count. So we'll get the pet frame. So local pet frame equals chosen frame dot parent wait for child pet frame. Local max size equals player wait for child max inventory size. Max size text dot text equals pets with a space here dot toString the number of pet frame get children -1. We need to -1 because remember in our pet frame we've got that UI grid layout and that counts as a child. Out of toString max size value. And that is it. Now I know this is really confusing, especially this last bit here, but all we're doing is updating the pet count text. Now we need to move on to the pet handler. We are getting there. So open up the pet handler script. And we've got quite a few more events we need to add. So we've got the hatch egg remote event here. After this, we need to add the equip pet remote event, the delete pet remote event, the unequip pet remote event, the select pet remote function, and the calculate equipped slots remote function. There we go. The configs will all stay the same. And let's do our equipped slots while we're here. So right at the top, we'll say calculate equipped slots remote function dot on server invoke equals function player, and remember we take the equipped slots as a parameter as well. The players pass through automatically. We'll say local number of equipped pets equals 0. For I equals 1, comma, the number of equipped pets, or slots, sorry, do if equipped slots in square brackets I dot value is not equal to 0, then we know there is a pet in that slot. So we can say the number of equipped pets plus equals 1. And at the very end, we'll just return the number of equipped pets. Next, we'll do our select pet. So at the bottom, I'll say select pet remote function dot on server invoke equals function, taking the player, the name, the pet template, and the chosen frame that we've already passed in earlier. Get the local pet object. So local pet object equals pet models, find first child with that name. We're just going to find the child in the pet models in the server storage with the same name that we're passing through. And if there is an object with that name, so if pet object, then we'll set the equipped text. So local pets folder equals player, wait for child pets. local selected pet equals pets folder, wait for child selected. Selected pet dot value equals pet template. And then we'll get the pet image. So local pet clone equals pet object clone. Pet clone dot parent equals chosen frame dot pet image. So we're going to put the clone into the chosen frame, and then we will return the pet clone. Otherwise, at the very bottom, we'll just return nil because nothing happened. So this basically clones the pet and puts it inside of the template, and then puts the template inside of the chosen frame. So this basically duplicates and clones the pet that we're looking for, that we've selected. It duplicates the model and places it inside of the chosen frame, pet image, viewport, because then we can just see it in the viewport frame. Next, we'll do the equip pet. Now this one's a bit more complicated. So we'll say equip pet remote event, on server event, connect function. We're going to take the player as a parameter, the equipped folder, the slot number, the equipped text, the button, and the pet name. We'll start by setting the equipped pet to the selected pet. So local equipped slots equals equipped pet equals equipped folder get children. And then equipped slots, in square brackets, we'll get the slot number. Dot value equals equipped text dot parent. Because we pass in the slot number, which is I when we fire it. Now we're going to spawn the pet inside of the player's character with the name pet1, for example, to resemble slot 1. So we'll get local stored pet equals pet models, wait for child, equipped slots, passing in the slot number, dot value dot name. So we're going to get the name of the equipped pet that we're after. Local cloned pet equals stored pet, clone. Then we can say cloned pet dot assigned player dot value, because remember in each pet we've added that assigned player string value, and we'll set the value of that to the character's name. So that equals player dot name. Next we'll say cloned pet dot name equals pet space dot and then to string the slot number. So it's going to have the same naming system as the equipped slots. So it'll be pet 1, pet 2, pet 3, and so on. We'll say cloned pet dot parent equals player dot character. So we're going to have all the pets. Essentially, this is the pet that follows the player around, and we're going to put it inside of the player's character just so it's neat, and we're not going to have 1,000 pets in the workspace just floating around. Finally, we'll say cloned pet dot pet movement dot enabled equals true, and this enables the movement script, because inside of each pet we've got that pet movement script, and we're just going to enable it so the pet starts following the player. Next we'll assign the boosts, so we'll say local boost folder equals equipped folder dot parent, which will be the pets folder, wait for child boosts. This will get the boosts folder, and then we will loop through each egg rarity. So for I, rarity in pairs pet module. So this will give us, the first one will be basic, then rare, then legendary. So once we loop through each rarity, we will loop for each pet in that rarity. So for J, pet in pairs, rarity.pet, to get that pets table, do if pet.name is equal to pet name, then we know it's the pet we're looking for. So we'll say if pet.currency is equal to cash, but if we're affecting cash for our boost, we'll say local cash boost equals boost folder, wait for child, cash boost, and then we can say cash boost dot value plus equals pet dot multiplier -1. The reason we do -1 is because the boost will always start at 1, and if the multiplier is 1.2 times, then we only want to add that extra 0.2, if that makes sense. We'll say else if pet.currency is equal to gems, then just copy these two lines here, but this will be gems boost and gems boost.value plus equals pet multiplier -1, and we'll just wait for the child gems boost. And of course you can add as many of these else if statements as you want for however many currencies you have. And then at the end here we will break, because we don't need to keep looping through everything once we've found what we're looking for. I'm going to copy all of this code again and paste it down here. And this one will be our unequipped pet. So unequipped pet remote event. We'll take the player, the equipped folder, the slot number. We don't need the equipped text. We'll take the button and the pet name. So we'll get our equipped slots and we'll basically set the value of the slot that we're looking for back to 0. And then we'll remove the pet with the corresponding name from the workspace. So we'll say local pet equals player dot character colon wait for child pet with a space, then dot toString passing in the slot number. So it's going to have that same naming system. So we're removing the pet with the same slot number of the slot that we're unequipping, if that makes sense. I know this gets a bit confusing now, it's quite complicated. Just stick out with me. I know if you are having a lot of difficulty understanding, just make sure all your code matches the same and you use my GUI, and then you can't go wrong. If anyone, as I say, wants a better explanation of everything, let me know and I will turn it into a little series of explanations. We can remove these 4 lines here because we're going to delete the pet anyway. We need to remove the boost, so we'll get our boost folder, loop through each egg rarity, loop through each pet in that rarity, and then rather than adding each pet multiplier, we're just going to subtract it. So we'll say minus and minus. And that's it. And then right at the bottom, we'll say delete pet remote event dot on server event colon connect function passing in, well, we take the player as a parameter, the chosen frame and the pet name. And in here, we will remove the pet from the image. So we'll say local pet image equals chosen frame dot pet image. And then we need to loop through every child of the pet image and delete all the images in case, or all the pets inside of it, sorry, in case there are any extras. So if at any point there's maybe some of them have accidentally duplicated and you've got, say, 3 pets in the pet image, we need to delete all of them. So we'll just say for I, pet in pairs, pet image, colon get children, do pet colon destroy. And that'll destroy all the pets in the pet image folder, viewport. And the last script that we need to work on is the GUI handler. Hopefully there's not too much to add, I don't think. Let me open up, so our Egg Billboard's basic GUI, background GUI handler. So we're only going to add the calculate equipped slots remote function to this. And again, I'm going to bring in our calculate equipped slots, so function calculate equipped slots, passing in the equipped slots, a local number of equipped pets equals calculate equipped slots remote function, colon invoke server, passing in the equipped slots, and then I'll just say local number of slots equals player colon wait for child pet slots. We don't need to get the text because we already get that up here. Where is it? The equipped number text, we already get that up here. So we can just say equipped number text dot text equals toString number of equipped pets dot / a dot toString and then number of slots dot value. And then by default, I'm going to call this number calculate equipped slots, passing in player dot pets colon wait for child equipped colon get children. And by calling this here, This means that when we add saving and loading later on, it's just going to automatically update all the equipped text for us once everything's loaded in. So I thought I'd just add it now just so it's done. So this will basically calculate our equipped slots straight away when the player loads. And that is it. So we can just close the GUI handler. It was just adding that calculate equipped slots. So then when we press play, by default you can see we've got a few problems here. So infinite yield on replicated storage, .events, wait for child, delete pet. These are actually warnings, not errors. But that basically means we're waiting for the delete pet to exist in replicated storage in the events folder, and it's just not existing. So we're waiting for ages and it's just not existing. So that is because I've not actually added it. So make sure in our events folder we add a remote event, and we need to rename this to delete pet. Now if we test and play, hopefully that will disappear. Open our inventory, everything loads, and now rather than it being loading out of 3 and loading out of 50, it actually updates. And now we can go over to our egg and buy one. It will appear in here. Let me just buy a couple. I'll buy 4. One more, there we go. Here we are. And now if I select it, it appears on the side. The dog, the mouse, and the dog. And you can see it actually does appear. Let's say I equip this dog. The dog gets sent to the front. It says equipped. And this dog now appears over here. I could also equip the mouse and the cat, but I can't equip anything else because we've already reached our max slots. And these follow me around. You can play around with the positioning in the pet movement script if you would like. I can now unequip them, and then it gets unequipped, and then I can equip something else, like this. And if I delete an equipped pet, it deletes it, and it's removed from following me. And I can equip a mouse as well. And now you see that the boosts are actually taking effect. My cash per second is not 5 anymore, and my gems per second isn't 1 anymore. If I open up my players and then your username, open up the pets and the boosts, you can actually see what boosts are being applied. So 1.6 times cash. So I am getting 8 cash each second. And 1.6 times 5, and that is 8, so that's correct. And the gems, I'm getting 1.3. So I should be getting 1.3 gems per second, which it's giving me about that. My gems value might actually be an integer. Oh, it is a number value, it's just being displayed, so it's not displaying the decimal point in the leader stats. But that's fine, it doesn't have to be perfect. There we go, sometimes it is. Oh, it is actually displaying it. Okay, perfect. So there we go, so that is the boosts. Alright, now we need to do the buy free eggs game pass. So let me start by adjusting our leader stats script. All I'm going to do is, at the very bottom, I'm going to add an isOpening instance. So this is going to be a Boolean variable that, when true, just means the player's opening an egg. This will stop the player being able to buy 1 and 3 eggs at the same time, ultimately being able to buy 4. We only want the player to be able to buy 1 egg at a time. So local isOpening equals instance dot new. It's going to be a bool value inside of the player. IsOpening dot name will be equal to isOpening egg. And now we can close the leader stat script. Now we need to create our triple egg hatching GUI and hatched GUI. So let's do that. So if we go into our egg hatching GUI, let's duplicate the single egg folder and we'll rename this to triple egg. Open this up and add a new folder, which I will rename to basic egg. And we'll put the basic egg in here. I'm going to duplicate this 2 more times, so now we've got 3 basic eggs in here. And I'll make them all visible, just so we can see what we're working with. And on the second one, I'm going to set the X position to minus 0.25, so it's to the left. And the third one, I'll set it to positive 0.25 on the X position. So now we've got 3 eggs on the screen. I'll just make them all invisible now. And same for the hatched GUI. So we need the triple egg folder, so let's duplicate our single egg. Rename this to triple egg. And rather than having 1 pet, we'll have 2 pets with the same system. So the position of the second one will be minus 0.25 on the X. And the position of the third one will be positive 0.25 on the X. And that's it for those GUIs. Now we need to actually create the Driple Gamepass. I'm not going to go too much into detail about how to create game passes, because I've already got a video on my channel about that, so go check out that video if you want more information on creating the game passes. Here we are, so I'm just going to create a pass. I will just rename it to buy 3 eggs and create the pass. I can now click these 3 dots, I can put it on sale. So if I actually click the name, sorry, not the 3 dots, hit sales, item for sale, and I can set whatever price I want, say 50 Robux. Save changes. And now I can click back to passes and I can copy the ID here. Now in our GUI handler script, so let's open that up. We're going to add a new service, which will be the marketplace service. Is game:get service marketplace service. Now after the events, I'm going to add game passes. So our buy 3 ID is going to be the ID we've just copied, so we're going to paste that in. So this is our buy 3 game pass ID. Now I'm going to add some stuff to our inventory GUI. I'm going to add a chosen frame after the pet frame is equal to inventory GUI.chosenFrame. Now after the hatched GUI, I'm going to add an egg hatching GUI equals script.parent.parent.parent.parent wait for child egg hatching GUI. So the script.parent is the background.parent is the basic GUI.parent is the Billboard GUI.parent is the starter GUI wait for child egg hatching GUI. Now in our egg shaking, our shake egg function, we're going to make some adjustments. So everything here is fine, but all we're going to do is add a new parameter. So we've got egg frame, and this one's going to be egg frames. If we're only hatching 1 egg, we're going to have egg frames will be nil, and egg frame will be whatever the frame is, because the frame is the egg that shakes. So for example, let me open up the egg hatching, this basic egg here. If it's triple egg, we're going to pass in all 3 eggs, which will be the egg frames, hence the, plural form. So if egg frames is nil, we're only going to shake 1 egg. So if egg frames is nil, then we're shaking 1 egg. So we'll just paste this into there. Otherwise, so we'll say else, we want to shake 3 eggs. So we'll copy this, paste it in, shake 3 eggs. And to do this, we need to loop through each goal. And then for each goal, we need to loop through each frame in the egg frames. So for __, comma frame in egg frames, do. And then we'll paste this in here. So for each frame, we're going to create a new tween with that frame in mind, the specific frame, not egg frame, but we're going to create it with this frame that we're looping through. We're going to play it, and we're not going to wait for it to finish because we want to play all of these simultaneously. And then at the end, we will wait for the full forward and reverse time. So we'll say task.wait shake info.time multiplied by 2 because it reverses. So it's going forwards, backwards, left, right. So we'll wait for the entire animation to finish. So the time multiplied by 2 because it reverses. And then once that time's up, we'll be done with the tweens. So this just allows us to shake 3 eggs at the same time, basically run 3 tweens at the same time. Now, in our reward pet function, we've got this if type single then. We'll add an else, and this is if the type's triple. So we'll say hatched folder equals hatched GUI dot triple egg. Now in the open egg function, again, we're going to add an egg frames parameter. Open single egg will all be the exact same because it's just opening 1 egg. The only bit we're going to change is at the bottom. So if egg frames is nil, then we're only opening 1 egg. So we'll just open 1 egg. Otherwise, we're going to do 3 eggs. So to do 3 eggs, we'll loop through, we'll do for _ comma frame in egg frames, do. So loop through each egg frame. The reason we're doing an underscore here is because we don't need the index. It's good practice that when you're not using the index in a for loop, you just set it to underscore so you know you're not using it. Then we'll call open single egg, passing in frame, and triple. Now in our hatch egg, we're going to add a parameter which says number, and this will be the number of eggs we're hatching. It's either going to be 1 or 3. So if the number is 1, so we're opening 1 egg, then we'll just do all of this code here. So local egg frame.visible, blah, blah, blah. Then we'll say else if the number is 3, then I'll copy all of this code, but we're going to change it a little bit. So we're going to start by getting all the frames in the triple egg folder. So local egg frames, this will be frames not frame, is player.player.GUI.egg-hatching-GUI.tripleegg find first child egg type get children, because we've got, let's go into our triple egg, and then we're finding first child egg type, which is this basic egg folder, and then we're getting the 3 eggs here, which are children. These are our frames. Make sure your basic egg is named the exact same as the basic egg. And now we need to loop through each one and only make the ones of the egg being open visible. So to do that, we'll say for I, frame in pairs, egg frames do frame.visible. So it's basically this line here. So copy and paste that in and replace egg frame with just frame. Frame.visible is true. Then we'll wait 0.2. We're going to shake egg, passing in nil, and then egg frames. And we're going to open egg, passing in nil, then egg frames, because remember we've added this second parameter to shake egg and open egg. Now in purchase egg, we're going to do similar things. We're just going to pass in the number of eggs. We'll say we're going to check if the player's already opening an egg or not, because if they are, we don't want to purchase another one until that one's been opened. So we'll say local is opening equals player, wait for child is opening egg. If is opening dot value is true, then return. We don't want to do anything if they're opening an egg. The only other difference we're going to make is if the cache.value is greater than or equal to the cost times the number of eggs we're opening, then. And then we're going to pass in cache and then after we get the max size, I'm going to say if the number is equal to 3, then it's a little bit different if it's 3. So we'll copy all of this code here, paste it in. But if it's 3, we're going to check if the number of pets number plus 2. And this accounts for the extra 2 pets we are gaining. Because we're going to, rather than gain 1 pet, we're gaining 3 pets. So this accounts for the extra 2 we're gaining. Because normally we have to minus 1. But because we got an extra 3, because we've got an extra 2 pets, we're essentially adding 3 onto it to get plus 2. And if this is less than or equal to the max size dot value, then we need to subtract the costs from the cache on the server. So we're going to pass in the cost times 3 because there's 3 eggs. Then we're going to hatch the egg passing in 3. And then in this if number equals 3, we'll add an else, and then we'll put the original code in. Paste that into there. Now we need to add a function to check if the player has the triple game pass. So function triple game pass. And then in here we'll add a new function, local function check triple game pass. So we'll check for the game pass. So local has pass, local success, message equals pcall, function has pass equals marketplace service user owns game pass at sync, player dot user ID, and we'll add the buy free ID as well. And then at the end we will return has pass. Then after this local function, if they don't have the pass, we want to prompt to purchase the game pass. So if check triple game pass is false, so if the user doesn't have the game pass, then we'll say marketplace service prompt game pass purchase, passing in the player and the ID of the game pass. Else we're going to buy 3 eggs because they already own the game pass, so they can buy 3 eggs. So we'll say purchase egg free. And now at the bottom we can say triple button dot mouse button one click connect, and in here just pass in the triple game pass function, so the name of the function, which is just triple game pass. Now we'll add an else if, so else if into here, copy these lines of code here. The else if input key code is enum.keycode.t. T is my buy free button. Then we will call Driple Gamepass. Otherwise, we're going to call in the first one here, rather than purchase egg, we're going to add 1 into those brackets. Now we'll add one more function. So if the player purchases the pass after the prompt, we need to reward the player. So if they get prompted to buy the game pass and then they buy it, then they're not going to want to press T again. If they've just bought it, we'll just open another 3 eggs. So we'll say marketplace service dot prompt game pass purchase finished :connect function purchase player purchase pass ID and purchase success. Then in here we'll say if purchase player dot user ID is equal to player dot player ID dot user ID, sorry, and purchase ID, purchase pass ID is equal to buy free ID, and purchase success, so the purchase was successful, then we'll call the Driple Gamepass function to buy 3 eggs. And that's it for the GUI handler script. We can close that up now. And let's open up our pet handler script. So the only difference in our purchase egg function, we're going to add our local is opening equals player, wait for child is opening egg. And then is opening dot value will be true when we're purchasing the egg because we've just started opening it. And then we'll minus the cost. Now we're going to adjust our hatch egg a little bit. So we need to add multiple pets. We need to add a pet to each frame in the Driple folder if we're hatching more than 1 pet. So after we clone the pet model, I'm going to say if hashtag, so the number of hatched folder, get children, is equal to 1, then. So in other words, if the hatched folder, which in our instance will be the single egg in the egg hatching GUI, if the number of children is 1, then we know it's a single egg. So we can just say pet model.parent equals hatched folder.pet. Else, if it's not 1, we know it's going to be the Driple because that's got 3 children. So else we'll say we need to add a pet to each frame in the Driple folder. We'll say for underscore comma v in pairs, hatched folder get children. Do if the number of v get children is 0, then so v will be this. So v will be the frame. If the number of children is 0, sorry, this is the hatched GUI. So v will be the pet frame, not the egg hatching. If the number of children is 0, that means we don't have a pet in there, so we need to add a pet. You can say pet model dot parent equals v. After this, we'll just add the pet to the inventory like normal, do the name, all the other good stuff. Everything else is absolutely fine. And then right at the end, after we destroy it, we'll say local is opening. Actually, we'll just copy it from up here. So we'll get our local is opening. Local is opening is player wait for child is opening egg. And then we'll set the value to false. And that should actually be it. So if I was to now test this, it will let me buy 3 eggs. So we'll test that 1 egg still works. So I'll click the button. So we actually get an error. Okay, so let's click on that. So attempt to perform arithmetic on null. On number and nil. So let's have a look at this line and see what we've done wrong. This is line 205 of the GUI handler. So if cache.value is correct, is greater than or equal to cost times number. So at some point we're calling the purchase egg function but not passing in the number. So let's have a look. So here it is. So when we click the single button, we need to pass 1 through the purchase egg function. So that should now work. This is why testing is very important. So now let's go up to the egg. I'll click it and it opens 1 egg. It gives us a dog, which appears in our inventory. Now if I click E, it gives us 1 egg as well, which will give us another dog. if I press the number 3, it gives us 3 eggs. They all move at the same time. Okay, so this bit works a bit differently, so we need to adjust that. But what we'll do, I'll fix that a bit later on. When we add the sort of saving and loading, then we can remove some weights, because the reason that these pets get added at separate times is because we're waiting for frames to finish, just for stuff to finish loading in. But when we add the saving and loading, I'm going to revamp the way we're waiting for stuff. So for now, we'll just bear with it. And if I press T, it works. But we can see that the 3 eggs work. But don't worry, we'll fix this slow, and it's not in the right order as well. But we'll fix all of that when we do the saving and loading, or maybe even the auto. But don't worry about that right now. It will get fixed, I promise. But for now, that's it for the triple egg. So we can move on. Okay, now I'm going to do the buy auto button. So again, I'm going to create a buy auto game pass. So I'm going to do that the exact same as I've just done the other game pass, and I'll get back to you once I've created it. There we go, so I've just created a buy auto game pass. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start by opening the GUI handler script. And I'm going to go down to our game passes ID here, and I'm going to add my buy auto ID, or I'll just call it auto ID. Equals, and paste that in there. I've just created it the same way I created the buy free ID. Next, after we get the GUI, I'm going to get the stop auto button. So before I do that, we need to create a stop auto button. So inside of, I'm trying to remember where it is now, stop auto button. So inside the egg hatching GUI, under the single egg, I'm going to add a text button, and I'll rename this to stop auto button. I'll just quickly design this and then get back to you. There we go. So it's just, let me make it visible. It's just this button here. It says stop auto. It's got a corner and an aspect ratio constraint in there. Nothing else, no script or anything. I'm just going to make it invisible by default. And that's in this single egg folder in the egg hatching GUI. Okay, now I can actually get that. So I can say stop auto button equals egg hatching GUI, colon, wait for child, single egg, colon, wait for child, stop auto button. Now just under our function Driple Gamepass, I'm going to copy it, and under here, just paste it in, and I'll rename this to Auto Gamepass. I'll rename our local function to check Auto Gamepass. And we're going to check for, rather than the buy free ID, we're going to check for the auto ID. And if the check Auto Gamepass is false, then we're going to prompt the purchase for the auto ID. Otherwise, we want to display the auto stop button. So display. So to do that, we'll just say stop auto button dot visible equals true. And then while the stop button is visible, we want to keep buying eggs, because as long as that button is visible, we know that we are auto buying eggs. So while stop auto button dot visible is true, if Billboard GUI dot enabled is true, so we want to keep checking if the Billboard GUI is enabled, then we will purchase an egg, we'll purchase 1 egg, wait 2 seconds, so we'll wait for the previous rewarded pet to disappear, and then we'll basically keep buying eggs. Because if I go into the pet handler script, when we reward the pet, so I believe it's under hatch egg, here it is, once we've actually put the egg into the frame and display the egg, it appears for 2 seconds. So this wait 2, you want this wait here to be the same length as this one here in the pet handler script. No, I'll close it up now. And else, we will say stop auto button dot visible is false. If the Billboard GUI is not enabled, we don't want to show the auto button anymore. And then we'll stop running the loop. Because if they've walked out of the, trigger point for the egg, we don't want to keep buying eggs. There we go. And now after this, we'll say stop auto button, not here, sorry, under the actual function, stop auto button, got mouse button 1 click, colon connect function, and then here we'll say stop auto button dot visible equals false. This will hide the auto button and stop the auto buy. And back into the auto game pass function, right at the top, I'll say if stop auto button dot visible is true, then we're going to return. We don't want to do anything if we're already auto buying. And I'll do that just before the while loop and this check here. And finally, after the triple button, we'll say auto button, dot mouse button one click, colon connect. And in here, we're going to call the auto game pass function. And finally, copy this else if here, paste it in. This will be if the key code is Y. I've gone for Y for my auto, and the Billboard GUI is enabled. And now we're going to add something to each of these. I'm going to say and stop auto button dot visible is false. I'm going to add that to all three of these if statements here, because we don't want to buy eggs if the auto game pass, if the auto button is visible, because we're auto buying eggs. So if we're auto buying eggs and then we go and buy triple eggs, well then we're going to be opening basically 4 eggs at the same time. And in here, we're going to call the auto game pass function. And same thing here. So I'm going to copy this line, this if line here, backspace it a bit, and I'll make this an else if. So else if purchase player.user ID is player.user ID, and purchase pass ID is the auto ID, and purchase success, then we'll call the auto game pass function, and just backspace that. There we go. Now I can close the GUI handler script. And that is it for the auto. So I should be able to now press play and buy my auto. So if I click the auto button, because I own the game pass, it'll open one, get a dog, and it should then automatically open the next. And it does. And it will keep doing this. So I got another dog. And then when I press the stop auto button, this should be my last egg, and then it won't work again. Perfect. And if I press Y, it will do the stop auto as well. And I can't, and even if I have the auto on, I can't click the other buttons until this one's done, until I click the stop auto button. And that's the same with anything. The only thing we can do is if we open, say, 3 eggs, we can click the auto, and then we get this stop auto button. And then you can notice that we actually can get 4 eggs at the same time. So if I press that, and then here, you see in the background, there's that 4th egg. So the way we can fix this is if we open up the GUI handler, right at the bottom, where we check our auto game pass, we'll just say, where we do this if stop auto button dot visible is true return, we'll also say, we'll get our local is opening actually. We need to get, so we can say local is openings player colon wait for child is opening egg. If the value is true, we will return. That's simple. So now when we play, here we go, so we're opening and we can't even press our auto button until these 3 are done. And now that they're done, we can auto open eggs. So we got that pet, and then it'll open another egg, and we get a different pet, and so on until we stop it. But that just helps stop that glitch that we just had there. And that's it for the auto egg. Okay, next up is the extra slots game pass. So I'm going to add a button under the inventory button here to purchase the extra slots game pass. Here we go. So I've just made it inside of the inventory GUI. I've got a more pets game pass here, is what I've named it. It's just a button which says 5 pets game pass on it. So you can have up to 5 pets equipped at a time. I've added a local script. It doesn't have anything in it yet. So let's actually go and create that now. So the first thing we need to do in here is get the players service and the marketplace service. Next we need to get our game pass ID, which I have already made my game pass. So let me just copy and paste the ID over. Here we go, it's this ID here. Do not use the IDs I'm using, by the way. Otherwise, it's just going to come up with my game pass. You want to use your own IDs from the game passes you've created. Next, I'll say player equals players dot local player. And then we'll get the button, which is equal to script.parent. Next, let's say function check game pass. So this function will check if the user has the game pass. So local has pass, local success, comma message equals pcall, function. In here we'll say has pass equals marketplace service colon user owns game pass async, player dot user ID, comma game pass ID, and then at the very end we will return has pass, which will be true or false. So let's set the initial visibility of the button. So when the player loads, if they own the Game Pass, we want the button to be invisible. So we can say, if check Game Pass is equal to true, then button.visible equals false. By the way, if at any point, because you create these Game Passes, you will own them unless you create them on the group. If you want to test if you don't own the Game Pass, you will need to change the ID to a Game Pass that you don't own. So just find a random Game Pass from a Roblox game, paste that ID into here, so then you can test all the buttons and stuff, and that they actually prompt you if you don't own the Game Pass. But as long as you do everything as I do, it will work. Next we'll say button.mousebutton one click, connect function. If check Game Pass is false, then we want to prompt to buy the Game Pass. Player, pass, so we pass in here the player and the Game Pass ID. Finally, we will hide the button if purchased. So we'll say marketplace service dot prompt Game Pass purchase finished connect function. We take in the purchase player, the purchase pass ID, and the purchase success. And we'll say if purchase player dot user ID is equal to player dot user ID, and purchase pass ID equals Game Pass ID, and purchase success, then button.visible equals false. So we just want to set the button to be invisible if we own the Game Pass. Now we can close that local script and the GUI handler. I don't need that open anymore. Now we need to go into server script service and add a new script. I'll rename this to Game Pass handler. And this is where we're going to handle our Game Pass stuff. So we're going to need the players, the marketplace service, and the replicated storage service. So let me get those. And I also need our slots ID, which is, let me go back into the local script to copy the ID again. There we go. Now we'll say players.playerAdded, connect function, passing in the player that joined. We'll do a while wait one do. So we're going to check every second, so the player doesn't have to restart the game each time they buy a pass. So when they buy a Game Pass, if we don't check that they own it, like every now and then, they're going to have to leave and rejoin the game for the Game Pass to take effect. Whereas what we're going to do in this script is check for the Game Passes every second to see if the player owns them. And if they do, then we can reward the player with the benefits of that Game Pass. So, of course, we'll start with the Slots Gamepass. So local pet slots equals player, find first child pet slots. If pet slots, then local pets folder equals player, find first child pets. If pets folder, then local equipped pets equals player, find first child pets. Oh, sorry, equipped, not pets, sorry. So equipped, if equipped pets, then we'll say if marketplace service, user owns Game Pass async, player.user ID, and the slots ID, then we need to reward the Game Pass. So we'll say pet slots, dot value equals 5. Now, in our Leaderstats script, if you remember, we are giving the player 3 slots in the equipped folder, pet 1, 2, and 3. What we're going to do is, if there's already 3 slots, we're only going to add 2 more. If there is no slots, we need to add all 5. So if the number of equipped pets, get children, is 3, then, so if we already have 3 slots, we just need to add 2 more. So say for I equals 4, 5, do local instance equals instance.new, object value inside of the equipped pets folder, and then we'll say pet instance.name equals pet with a space .i. And now here we can say else if after this the number of equipped pets get children is 0, then so if there are no slots yet, if no slots have been added yet, we need to add all 5. So for I equals 1, 5, do, and we're just going to copy this code here. That's it. Now, on this if marketplace service user owns Game Pass if statement, we're going to add an else to this. And in here, we will say pet slots dot value is free, because if they don't own the Game Pass, then they only have free slots. And we're going to only add pet slots if they haven't already been added. So we'll just copy this if statement here. So if, we'll just replace the else if here, and just tab all this back in. Like that. So if the number of equipped pets, get children, is 0, then we need to add 3 instances. So we'll make this for I equals 1, 3. And this will just add those 3 instances back to the player. Now we can close the Game Pass handler script, open up the Leaderstats script, and because we're doing all of this in the Game Pass handler, we no longer need to add the 3 object instances in the Leaderstats script, because we're now doing it in the Game Pass script. That's it. So if we close that, we should now have 5, so there we go, the button disappears. We should now have 5 equipped pet slots. Obviously that text isn't updating yet, but we're going to worry about updating the text sort of towards the saving and loading part. But if I open the player now, open up pets and equipped, so okay, so it's not actually running. So let's have a look at why that's not running. Okay, so the reason it's not running is because we're checking for the equipped pets in player find first child equipped. It should actually be pets folder find first child equipped. So now when we test it, there we go, so the button disappears, it loads and it says 0 out of 5. So it is actually working now. And if we was to open up players and our pets and equipped, we've got 5 pet slots. So it does actually work now. Okay, so to test this is something you should probably test with a new ID. What I'm going to do is find a random ID from a random Roblox game. In fact, if I just change this down to like 82 or something, this probably is a Game Pass. If I make it a number smaller than the number that I've used, it should be a Game Pass. So it's a 0 out of 3. So 86 is the original. I'm going to make it 82. So let me comment that bit out, copy and paste this. There we go, I'll make it 82. What I'm going to do is do the same in the local script for the More Pets Game Pass. So comment this bit out and make this 82. So now the button stays there. This says 0 out of 3. I don't know what Game Pass is going to pop up when I click this. Your purchase failed because something went wrong. Your account's not been charged. So actually, it's a game. It looks like it's a Game Pass that doesn't exist. Otherwise, it'd pop up saying what the Game Pass is, and 0 out of 3. Perfect. So that's how you know that that bit works. And that's why, is because it should have a 1 at the start. I cut the 1 out. So now when I do it and click it, the item's not for sale. There you go. So it's picked a Game Pass, which isn't actually for sale. If it was for sale, don't worry, when you click it, it's not going to purchase it. Whenever you purchase a Game Pass or a developer product in Roblox Studio, it's fake. It won't actually take the Robux out of your account. It won't actually charge you. It's called a test purchase, which just means that it pretends to take Robux, but it doesn't actually take them. It will actually tell you at the bottom, this is a test purchase and your account will not be charged. There we go, so that's that. Okay, now let's do the Game Pass for extra inventory space. So this one will allow the player, rather than having 50 max inventory space, they'll be able to have 150. Obviously, you can make the numbers whatever you want. All I've done is created the button, so I've just duplicated the More Pets Game Pass and moved the button over, and I've created the Game Pass. The exact same as we've done for the previous Game Passes. So now I'm going to duplicate the local script we made in the More Pets Game Pass and drag it into the Inventory Game Pass and open it up. I'm going to replace the ID with the ID I've created. There you go, so that's my Inventory Pass ID. And other than the ID, the rest of the code's going to be the exact same, so we can now close it. Now into our Game Pass handler, it's going to be, we're going to add the Inventory ID, so Inventory ID equals, and paste in our Inventory ID. And now that we've got the Slots Game Pass, at the top, we'll do our max inventory size Game Pass. So to do this, we'll get local max inventory size equals player, find first child max inventory size. If max inventory size, then if marketplace service, user owns game passes sync player dot user ID comma inventory ID. Then, so if they own the inventory ID game pass, then we're going to reward the game pass. So we'll say max inventory size dot value equals 150. Else max inventory size dot value equals 50. So with the game pass, they'll have 150 inventory size. Without it, they'll just have 50. Obviously, make the numbers whatever you want them to be, but they're the numbers I'm going with. This should now be it. So if I now hit test and play, the button disappears and my max size is 150. Perfect. So we know that one worked as well. That's it for the inventory size. Okay, so now we need to do the inventory sorting. So remember we've got the sort by name and rarity buttons. Let's actually do this. So inside of the background frame, I'm going to add in our inventory GUI, a local script. And I will rename this to grid sort. Start by getting the services. So all we're going to need is the replicated storage. And the GUIs we're going to need are the background. So background equals script.parent, and the pet frame is background.petFrame. Now we'll get our buttons, so the name button, which will be background.nameButton, and our rarity button is background.rarityButton. So these are the sort buttons. Next we'll get our configs, so this is the exact same. So configs is replicated storage, wait for child configs, and pet module is require configs, wait for child pet module. First we'll do our sort by name, so name button dot mouse button one click, connect function. We're going to create a list of pets, so local list of pets, and by default this will be an empty table. So the children of the pet frame will get added to this table, and then it's going to be sorted alphabetically. So to do that, we'll start by looping through each child of the pet frame. So local pets equals pet frame, get children. For I, v in pairs, pet frame, or pets, sorry, do. And we're going to check if the pet is a viewport frame. So if v is a viewport frame, then we need to make the equipped pets the priority, because we always want equipped pets to show first. So we're going to check if it's a viewport frame, because pets are viewport frames. So this ignores the GUI. So this will ignore the UI grid layout, because we can't organize the UI grid layout. So if v.equipped.visible is true, so if it's equipped, then the layout order will set to -1. So that is shown, because remember lower numbers are always shown first. So we want it to be shown first if it's equipped. Otherwise, we'll do table.insert list of pets, v, and we'll add it to the list of pets. Once we've added it all to the list of pets, all the children, we'll do table.sort list of pets, function. We're going to take a and b as a parameter. And we're going to return a.name is less than b.name. And this will sort the list alphabetically. It's a bit confusing to explain how this works, but basically, this is kind of like a lambda expression if they existed within Lua U. It's checking the first item with the second item, and if the name of the first item is less than the second item, then we're going to sort it in that order alphabetically, if that makes sense. Basically, this is to sort alphabetically. Then finally, we will apply the layout order to the sorted list, because this list is now sorted alphabetically. We can say for I, pet in I pairs, list of pets, do pet.layout order equals I. And now if we want to sort by rarity, I'll copy all of this and paste it down here, and I'll make this sort by rarity. So this one will be rarity button. And what we're going to do first is loop through each pet in the pet module and store a table of their rarity. So create a local list of pet rarity pairs is going to be an empty table. And then for I, egg type, in pairs, pet module, do. For j, pet, in pairs, egg type dot pets, do. So this loops through each pet in each egg. We'll say list of pet rarity pairs, in square brackets pet.name, equals pet.rarity. So what we've got here is essentially a dictionary. So the key is going to be the name of the pet, and the value is going to be the rarity of the pet. Now what we can do is create a local list of pets, similar to what we had last time. Loop through each child of the pet frame, so this exact same code. And then rather than making equip pets the priority, we're going to loop through each pet in the pet rarity pairs. So for key, value in pairs, list of pet rarity pairs, do. If the name of the pet in the inventory is equal to the name of the pet in the pairs, then we need to add the pet to the list. So if v.name equals key, then we need to add the pet to the list. So we start by making the equipped pets the priority. So if v dots, we can just copy it from here. So if v.equip.visible equals true, all of this bit. And else insert to the list of pets v. And then after this, sort the table by rarity. So we can say table.sort list of pets function a, b. And in here, we're going to return list of pet rarities pairs in brackets a.name is greater than list of pet rarity pairs in brackets b.name. And this will compare the number rarity. And then at the very bottom, we can remove that table.sort and apply the layout order. And that's it. Now if we close that and press play, hit inventory. Let me get a few pets in my inventory. So I'll just open like 6 eggs. Again, we'll fix this bit shortly. Here we go. So if I go alpha, if I sort by name, we should have dog, then cat, then mouse. So cat, then dog, then mouse, sorry. And then if I go by rarity, it should be mouse, cat, dog, which it is. Perfect. So that all works. If I now go by name and equip a dog, a cat, and another dog, if I then go by rarity, it'll probably go cat, dog. I don't know. These 3 will be equipped anyway. If I now sort by rarity with these equipped, so these 3 will stay equipped, and then after this, we will have mouse, cat, dog. There you go. So they stay equipped, and then we've got mouse, cat, dog. If we sort by name, these will stay equipped, and it will go cat, dog, mouse. There you are. Perfect. Now we can stop that. And that's the inventory sorting. Of course, you can add your own sorting methods. Just look up the sort function and how you use it, because it's a bit different to other sort of table methods. Now I'm going to do some fixes to our inventory max count and equipped count. So in the GUI handler script, when we reward the pet, I'm not going to do any of this here. I'm going to delete all of this code after the hatch egg, after we fire the hatch egg remote event. And now in our open egg, just before the egg frames equals nil code, I'm going to add a local function, update text, and in here we're going to wait until the pets have been added to the inventory. So we're going to repeat wait until player find first child is opening egg, and player find first child is opening egg dot value is false. So this is going to wait until the is opening egg value is false. So basically until the player is ready to open another egg, because only when the player is ready to open another egg have the previous pets been added to the inventory. And if that's the case, then we can update the max size text. So local pets number equals pet frame get children. Then local max size equals player colon, wait for child, max inventory size. Then max size text dot text equals pets colon with a space dot toString. The number of pets, so pets number, hashtag pets number -1, dot, a forward slash, dot, toString, the max size dot value. And we need to subtract 1 because this code is ran after the pet is cloned into the pet frame. And I believe that's it. So if we were to now play, it just means that this whole pet thing is going to be more accurate. So if we now buy 3, once this is done, this should go pets 3 out of 150 once these pets disappear. Which, okay, so it doesn't, and that's because we're not calling it. So we actually need to call the local update. So let me find it. So it was in the hatch egg or the purchase egg. It's in one of these. Here it is. So it's in the open egg. So we need to call the update text after we call this open single egg and after we open the triple eggs. So update text. There we go. So now when we press play, when we actually test this, because before there's a little problem where sometimes the pets wouldn't go straight away. There we go. So now they all appear at the same time. Because remember when I said that you might have to adjust the wait time for this text to update? Well, now we don't need to worry about that because it's doing it properly. So, and it fixes that problem, which is what I'm aiming for. So it waits until the pets have disappeared before updating the text. But that just ensures that all the pets are properly accounted for. So that's just a fix I wanted to go through there. The final script we're actually going to create now, or the final couple, is about saving and loading. So this bit's a bit complicated as well. Before we do that, I just want to go into the GUI handler again. Not the GUI handler, sorry, the pet handler is what I want. And we're going to find our equip pet remote event. Here it is. And after we set the value of the equipped slots to the parent, I'm going to say equipped slots, taking in the slot number, colon, set attribute, pet name, spelled exactly like this, comma, equipped text, dot parent, dot name. And this will save the name for the saving and loading. We use attributes here because the object is destroyed before the saving script is called, so the reference will always be nil, so otherwise it won't actually save and load anything, so we have to use attributes. So now I can close that, and let's add a bindable event. So bindable event into the events folder, and I'll rename this to load pets, and we'll add a remote event, and I'll rename this to equip pet client, because we need to equip pets on the client. So now let's go into server script service and add a script. I'll rename this to data store. And before I go any further, go to file, game settings, and go to security. Make sure enable studio access to API services is enabled, or you will not be able to test the data stores. So the services we're going to get are player service, data store service, and replicated storage. Just like this. Next, let's get our data store. So if you don't understand data stores, I've got a good video on them, which I recommend you check out. Because I'm not going to go too in detail with this. I'm just sort of going to rush through it a little bit because this video is incredibly long. So I'm going to try and get through it. But if you do want more of an explanation, please check out my video on data stores. I'll leave a link in the description. Data store service, colon, get data store. And I'll just name it tutorial -1. If you ever want to reset it, or I'll just do tutorial. You can change the name of this to get different save profiles, essentially. We'll say events equals replicated storage, colon, wait for child events, and load pets. So we want the load pet bindable event and the equip pet client remote event. So I'll get those. Next, we'll get default data, which will be equal to a new table. And this will be the default data. So cache, this is how it appears in the leader stats. Cache is by default 10,000. So I'll make cache 10,000, semicolon. Gens by default is 0. And now we've got our pet data. So obtained pets will be an empty table. So these are pets that the player has in their inventory. And equipped pets will be an empty table. And these are the pets the player has equipped. But by default, the player's never going to have any pets because they've just played for the first time. This is essentially the data the player has if they're playing for the first ever time. Now let's create a function, local function deepCopy. I'll leave this code in the description because this is actually off of the Roblox documentation. This is basically a function that loops through tables to return a finalized copy of tables. So I'm not going to go through this code because it's in the docs. So just copy and paste it from the description. Next, I'll create a local function save data, passing in the player whose data we're saving. Local success, comma, error message equals pcall function. And we will start by getting all the pets the player has in their inventory. So local obtained pets equals an empty table. Local pets equals player, colon, wait for child, pets. If pets, colon, get children is not equal to nil. So if the player has pets, then for I, v in pairs, pets, colon, get children, do if v, colon, is a string value, then make sure your capitalization is exactly how I have it, by the way, or it will not work. Because we have the equipped folder, the boost folder, and so on in the pets folder, we need to check. We know the pets are just string values inside the pets folder. So we only care if it's a string value. If it is, we're going to add the key and the value. So obtained pets, I, equals v.name, comma, v.value. So this will set the value of the key to the name and the value, separated by a comma. And then when we load it, we can unseparate these, split them by the comma. So then we've got the name and the value separately. This should be value. There we go. Now after this little if statement here, we need to get all the equipped pets that the player has. So I'll say local equipped pets equals an empty table. Local equipped folder equals pets, colon, wait for child. Equipped. Local equipped slots equals equipped folder, colon, get children. And then we go for I, v in pairs, equipped slots, do. And we're going to save each value to the table. So table.insert equipped pets, comma, v, colon, get attribute, pet name. We're going to store the name of each pet to the table. Next we'll say local data to save equals a new table with player.leaderstats.cache.value, player.leaderstats.gems.value, and then we'll save the pets data. The order we save data in here must match this order here. It must match exactly. So next is the obtained pets, and then it's equipped pets. So obtained pets and the equipped pets, which are the two tables that we've populated up here. And finally, we can say data store, colon, set async, player.user_id, comma, data to save. And then after this end, we'll say if error message, then error message. Then we need to worry about loading data. So after this, we'll say player service.player added, colon, connect function, passing in the player that joined. Local equipped pets, local leader stats equals player, colon, wait for child, leader stats. Local pets folder equals player, colon, wait for child, pets. Local equipped folder equals pets folder, colon, wait for child, equipped. Then local success, comma, error message equals equals pcall function, and we'll get the data. So local data is data store colon get async, passing in the player.user ID. If the data is nil, so if there is no data, then data equals deepCopy of the default data. So basically we're creating a table of the default data. Then we'll say data store colon set async the player.user ID, comma the default data. Because we want to save the default data if they don't have any data already saved. Then after this if statement, we'll just assign our data to everything that should be there. So leaderstats.cache.value is data1 or data cache. Again, I explain all of this more in my data store video, so if I'm rushing through it, please check out the data store video on my channel if you want a better explanation. So next we need to add the pets to the inventory. So local obtained pets equals data3 or data obtained pets. Make sure that whatever the string is here is spelt the exact same as it is here, with the capitalization correct as well. Then we'll say if obtained pets is not equal to nil, then we need to loop through it. So for I, v in pairs, obtained pets, do. And we need to create a new string value with pet name inside the pets folder. So local pet val equals instance.new string value inside of the pet inside of player.pets. Local pair equals string.split v comma, and we're going to split by a comma. Just like this, because this will split it into the two parts, the name and the value. The pet val.name will be pair 1, and the pet val.value will be pair 2. Because if you remember, the name of the pet is the name, and the value of the string is the egg rarity, which is what we're splitting here, the name and the value. And then after this, we could say equipped pets equals data4 or data equipped pets. And then after this, we'll say if error message, then error message. And then after this, it's just about putting the pet frames into the pet frame and equipping the pets. So we'll say local pet template equals replicated storage colon wait for child pet template. Then we'll say load pets be colon fire passing in player and pet template. Then we'll wait 3 seconds. This just waits enough time for all the pet frames to be loaded in. Make sure I put this at 3, you could have it higher. It just guarantees everything's loaded in by then. Just don't put it too high or it will take a while for stuff to finish loading in. Now we'll do the GUI stuff. So we'll get our local inventory GUI is player.player GUI colon wait for child inventory GUI, and local background equals inventory GUI colon wait for child background, and local pet frame equals background colon wait for child pet frame. And now we can equip the pets. So if equipped pets is not equal to nil, so there are pets to equip, then we will loop through them. So for I, pet name, in pairs, equipped pets, do, local equipped text, and local button. Now we'll loop through each pet in the pet frame and select a pet with the same name. So we just want to select a pet that has the same name as the one we've loaded. So for J, new frame, in pairs, pet frame, colon get children, do. If new frame colon is a, and we want to check if it's a viewport frame, then if new frame dot name is equal to pet name, so if it's got the same name, then we know we can use that frame to equip. So say if new frame colon get attribute loaded equipped equals false, then So only check if the frame's not already been chosen for another pet. Then we'll say new frame, set attribute, loaded, equipped, comma true. And then we'll say equipped text equals new frame dot equipped. And button equals new frame dot button. And then we can break out of this. Now we've not created the loaded equipped attribute yet. So we need to actually do that. So on our pet frame, in the properties, scroll to the bottom. And if you've bought in my GUI, you should already have it. Make sure you've got an attribute here named loaded equipped. If you don't, let me delete it. If you don't, click the add. Name it loaded equipped. It needs to be spelled exactly like this. And make it a type boolean. And save it. And make it false by default. And then after this for loop, we can just say equip pet client remote event fire client. Passing in the player, the equipped folder, the equipped text, and the button, and finally the pet name. And then after this, we just need to actually save the data. So player service.player removing, connect function, passing in the player that's leaving the game. We'll save the data, passing in the player, and then we'll wait 2 seconds, which just gives the time to finish saving before leaving. And we'll do the same for game bind to close function. We'll loop through each player. So this is if a server gets shut down. So for underscore player in pairs, player service get players, do save data player. And then at the very end we'll wait 2, just to give time to finish saving before shutdown. So this is called every time the server's shut down. Now we can close the data store script. Now inside the inventory GUI, I'm going to add a local script, and I'll rename it to loading equipped pets. And we're going to get the replicated storage and the player service. We're going to get the player as well. And we're also going to get the equipped pet remote event, the equipped pet client remote event, and the calculate equipped slots remote function. And we'll also bring in our calculate equipped slots function as well. So I'll bring this in. The only difference is we're going to have a button as a second parameter. And local number of equipped pets will be the same. The equipped number text will be button.parent.parent.parent.equipped number. The local number of slots will be player wait for child pet slots. The equipped number.text.text is the exact same as it always is. And then finally, after this function, we'll say equip pet client remote event dot on client event connect function, taking in the equipped folder, the equipped text, button, and pet name. We'll say equipped text dot visible equals true to make that equipped text visible true. Equipped text dot parent dot layout order equals -i. So the last pet to be equipped is the first pet to be displayed. Then we'll say equip pet remote event fire server, passing in the equipped folder, the equipped text, button, and pet name. And finally, local equipped slots equals equipped folder get children. Then calculate equipped slots, passing in the equipped folder, or the equipped slots, button. And that's it. Now we can close that script up. Now if we test and play, the first ever time, so we've got an error here. So table expected got boolean, so let's have a look at this. So line 113 of the data store script. Okay, so this error, I think it might just be because it's our first time loading the data, so it's not really sure. Let me try a different data store name, so I'll just call this data store name. And if it gives an error, okay, so it might have just been a previous, I might have just used that key for a previous set of data, so, and I was trying to save a boolean. So don't worry about that, you may not have got that error. If you did, just change the name and it should go. So now if I get, say, let's go for, I'm going to get 9 pets, equip 4, and hopefully when I save and load, everything will be the same. To open 3 more eggs, here it is. Okay, so I'm going to equip a mouse, 2 dogs, and a cat. So I've got a mouse, 2 dogs, and a cat. I've got 4 equipped, 9 out of 150. When I stop the game, it should take a few seconds. That means it's saved. And when I press play, give it a second to load in. Okay, and we've got some errors. So attempt to index nil with visible. Let's have a look at this. Okay, so the reason it's not working is because we're missing something. So we can close these scripts up. That's absolutely fine. We need to go to our pet handler script. And here it is, pet handler. At the bottom, we'll add our load pets BE equals events : wait for child load pets. And essentially right at the bottom, I'm just going to say load pets BE dot event : connect function player pet inventory template. And this is the function that's just going to basically put all of the templates back into the pet frame. So I'm going to get the pets folder. So local pets folder is player : wait for child pets. I'm going to get the inventory GUI, the background, and the pet frame. And I'm going to loop through each child of the pets folder. I'm also going to check if it's a string value, and if it is, I'm going to put the pet in the inventory. I'll say local pet model equals pet models, find first child, v dot name. If the pet model exists, so if pet model, then I'm going to add the pet to the inventory. So local pet GUI equals pet inventory template : clone. Local pet clone equals pet model : clone. And pet clone dot parent will be the pet GUI. Next I'll say pet GUI dot name equals v dot name, and pet GUI dot text label dot text equals v dot name, and this name must have an uppercase N over here. And finally I'll say pet GUI dot parent equals pet frame. Now if I go back into our data store script, I'm just going to make this data store name free. And now if I retest it, so I'll give myself the same thing. I'll give myself 9 pets, and I will equip 4 and test the saving and loading. Here we go. So once these come in, I'm going to equip a bunny, a dog, another dog, and a cat. So I've got a bunny, 2 dogs, and a cat. If I now, I've also got 9 out of 150. So if I now stop and reload, hopefully we don't get any problems this time. There you go, no errors yet. Give it all a second. The pets load back in. So we've got our bunny, our 2 dogs, and the cat over there. And they're still equipped in here. And I've still got 9 out of 150, and it's all the same pets. Wonderful. So the saving and loading is also working. Okay, so the final thing left to do is the other eggs now. Because this egg works, so now we've just got to do the other 2 eggs. So we need to do the GUI for the other eggs. So let's go into the egg hatching GUI. And I'm going to duplicate the basic egg and rename this to rare egg. The exact same as it's spelled in the pet module. And rather than this being called basic, this will be rare. And I will open up my rare egg in the workspace, click the egg, and copy the color, and just use the same color. So I'll change the color to that blue. I'll duplicate this rare egg and rename it to legendary egg. I'll rename the egg from rare to legendary, and I will change the color. So what is the color of the legendary egg? It's a red color. So I'll change the color here as well. There you go. Next I'll duplicate this basic egg folder and rename this to rare egg. And rename all of these to rare egg as well. There you go, just rename them to rare eggs. And all of these eggs inside need to become rare. It's a bit of a renaming process, it's a bit annoying, but it works. So now I'm just going to get my rare egg again. So get that color and make it this color on these eggs. And now I'll do the same for the legendary egg. So duplicate the folder, I'll make this legendary egg. Rename these to legendary egg. Copy that and then paste it over for these ones. And then I'll rename the egg to legendary. There you go. And then I'll change the color to the color of the legendary egg. Change these 3 colors to the red color. Wonderful. So that's our egg hatching GUI done. Now we can close that. For good, we'll do our hatched GUI as well. Actually, we don't need to do anything for that because there's just hatched GUI. We'll do the other Billboard GUIs. So I'll duplicate the basic GUI, rename this to rare GUI. I'm going to open up the GUI handler and scroll down to where it says egg type. And rather than basic egg, this one will be for the rare egg. And I'm going to click the rare GUI and change the adornee. Where it says glass, I need to make it the glass of the rare egg. So I'll click that and click glass in the rare egg. Otherwise, it will appear on the basic still. Do the same again. So duplicate, rename this to legendary GUI. Open it up, make the GUI handler, change this to legendary egg. Close that. Change the adornee of the Billboard GUI to the glass of the legendary egg. Now I need to do the GUI trigger script in each of these. So let me open up the script. Let me duplicate the script from the basic egg, put it into the legendary GUI trigger, and just change this from basic GUI to legendary GUI. And same again for the rare GUI, change this from legendary GUI to rare GUI. Now if I test and play, we should have a fully working egg system. So if I go over to the basic egg, I can buy, I'll just do 1 for now. That works. I come over here and the Billboard GUI works here as well. If I do this, I get a rare egg and I should get a rare pet, which I do. If I press T, I should get, there we go, triple egg. And just to show the auto works as well. There we go. So my hamsters are very common. Probably too common. And the legendary egg works as well. Okay, so the only one that's not working for the legendary egg is the buy free. Not sure why that is. Okay, so I'll have a little look at why the legendary egg's not working. But other than that, it all works absolutely fine. So the reason the legendary egg was working is because I'm being silly. It's because of the price. So the legendary egg, I believe, costs 2,500 cash. So I need to click this little client button up here. If I give myself more cash in the Leaderstats, give myself a bunch, the buy free, so I'll stop the auto. There you go. So the buy free will now work because I didn't have enough cash. That was why. And if I do auto, it will auto buy, which is perfect. So the only thing left to do is change the price tags. So if I click on the rare egg, what I'm going to do is just add a script into the price tags. So for the basic egg first, I'm just going to add a script. I'll add it into the price text here. I'll get the replicated storage and I'll get our pet module. I'll get the text label. The text label is script.parent. The egg name is text label.parent.parent.parent.name. So the text label.parent.parent.parent is the basic egg, which is the name of the egg. And then I can just say text label.text equals the currency sign dot dot toString pet module in square brackets the egg name dot cost. And that will set the name to the, that will set this price tag here down to the cost. And I'll put that in each of the price tag scripts. Duplicate it again, price tag, surface GUI, price text. Now it should show the correct prices. They go 2,500, 500, and 100. Brilliant. Before we can actually finish and wrap up the video, we need to do a couple of fixes. So first of all, when the player dies, I'll try and show you now actually. So when we've got pets equipped, if we reset our character, we will lose the pets. And when the player reloads, we won't have the pets still equipped, and all our pets will be gone from the inventory. And this is a big problem. Luckily, it's got a fairly easy fix. So all we need to do in Starter GUI, select your egg hatching, your hatched, and your inventory GUI, and you're going to disable the reset on spawn property. This means that when we now reset our character with pets equipped, all the pets will still be in the inventory because the GUI doesn't reset, it stays on the screen. There we go, so we reload, and all of our pets are still there. So the only problem is we don't have the equipped pets now. We need to spawn the pets back in once we die. So to do that, I'm going to create a new script inside a server script service, and just rename it to respawn handler. In here, we need to get the player service, the replicated storage service, and the server storage. So let's get all of them. And we're also going to call a function when the player joins. So players.playerAdded::connect function, passing in the player that has joined the game. And in here, we're going to have a character removing and a character added function. So we'll start with the character removing. So player.character_removing::connect function, and the character is automatically passed through here. And this function is called whenever the character dies, just before the character dies. So what we'll do is create a temporary folder in server storage for the player's pets. So basically, we'll get all the player's pets and put them into a new folder inside of server storage, and we'll make that folder the same name as the player's character. So we'll say local folder equals instance.new folder inside of server storage. Folder.name equals character.name. This bit's very important. The name of the folder must be equal to the character's name. For icon child in pairs, character, :get children, do. So this will loop through each child of the character just before the character dies. And we're going to check, because if you remember, our equipped pets are just models inside of the character. We're going to check if the child's a model and if it contains the name pet. Because remember, we've renamed each model to pet with a number after it. So we'll say if child : is a with an uppercase I, uppercase A, model, and string.sub, child.name, (1, 3), so this gets the first 3 characters, which should be pet with an uppercase P. Make sure you've got an uppercase P there. Then we're going to place the pet inside of the new folder, so child.parent equals folder. Now when the character's added, so underneath this we'll say player.character_added. In fact, I'll just copy the whole character removing function and paste it back in, and just rename this to character added. There we go. We'll start by getting the humanoid, so local humanoid equals character, : wait for child humanoid. And we want to set the break joints on def property of the humanoid to false, so humanoid.break joints on def equals false. Make sure you spells it exactly like this, so uppercase B, J, O, and D, otherwise it will not work. And what this will do is stop all the humanoid's joints from breaking, because basically whenever the character dies, every single world constraint and joint is basically deleted, it's destroyed from the character, so it all sort of falls apart. And this will include our pets as well, so our pets will fall apart. For example, the legs on the pets will fall apart, so we need to include this to stop that. I'm then going to add a wait, just a little quick wait to make sure everything's done properly. And then we're going to get each pet in the player's folder. So local folder is going to be equal to server storage, : find first child, character.name. And if the folder is not nil, so if folder is not equal to nil, then we're going to loop through each child. I'll copy this for loop and paste it into here. Loop through each child of the folder, so of folder : get children. And we don't need this if statement. All we'll say is child.parent equals character. Just like so. And then after the for loop, we'll add a little wait, and then we'll destroy the folder. We can say folder : destroy. There we go. And now we can close the respawn handler script, and the only other thing we need to do is update the loading equipped pet script. So in our inventory GUI, open up our loading equipped pets, and the only thing we need to do is after the equipped pet remote event here, I'm just going to add a little wait, just to wait for the pet to be equipped, because I was noticing when I was testing it earlier, it wasn't always updating the equipped pets. There we go, now it's updated. So that's it. So now when I respawn, so I've got a mouse, hamster, dog, and cat. Mouse, hamster, dog, cat. And when I respawn, you'll see that once the player loads back in, you can change your respawn time. I've still got my pets here. They're all still equipped. I can click on them and unequip them, for example, which will do that. And it all works really well. And I've still got the boosts as well. So that is it. So that is it for the pet system, everyone. I know this was incredibly complicated. A very, very long video. I think this is the longest one I've ever done. What I'm going to do is, once this is uploaded, I'm going to look into making a series out of just explaining everything. I want to, if anyone asks for it, I will, but I want to go through everything line by line in detail, because this was very rushed. This was more just getting it done, and I want people to learn. That's the whole reason I do these tutorials. I want people to learn scripting. So what I might do is do a mini series, not reprogramming it all, but just going through everything and explaining exactly how everything's working. So if anyone wants to see that, please let me know. If anyone has any questions about the video, let me know. If anyone's just got any questions about anything, it's not working. The best thing I'd recommend to do if you've got any problems with this is, because it's such a long video, is join our Discord server. I'm not just saying that, but because the video is so long, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what went wrong if something's not working. The best way that we can help you is if you join our Discord server. The link will be in the description. You can then put a request in the Roblox Studio help forum. Leave screenshots, error codes, lines of code that are problematic, and then it's much easier to help you than in YouTube comments. We can try our best in comments, but the best way we can get you help is Discord. So if you have Discord, please consider joining the server, and you can just chat there if you'd like as well. But if you don't have Discord, then YouTube comments is the way to go. We'll do our best to reply to everyone and help everyone the best we can. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hopefully you found it helpful and you've got a good working pet system now. You can now make as many eggs as you want. Of course, just if you wanted to make a new egg, you duplicate this in the egg billboards, you duplicate the hatching GUI. Hopefully you can get a gist of how to add more now. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you found the video helpful, please leave a like and subscribe, as this took a long time to plan, create, record, edit. I'd really appreciate a bit of support. Yeah, thanks for watching, and goodbye.